Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, and we are live at Radio Row at Super Bowl 59. That's right here in New Orleans, our coverage. Presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Family Leisure, Volunteer Hose and Gas, Houston Clinic Orthopedics, 312 Pizza Company, the New Cumberland Development, and by Shane Company. So we are rocking and rolling. We are loaded today. Trevor Sikkema, the lead draft analyst from Pro Football Focus, will be on with us in less than 15 minutes. We will have Jim Miller from Moving the Chains on Sirius XM NFL Radio, former NFL quarterback. He was calling the Senior Bowl. What he's hearing about the quarterbacks, he will join us. Fitz will join us. Malcolm Butler will join us. And, of course, we're going to have Jared versus Joe today all as well. Live out here from Radio Row. But I want to start with this. So I hate to say this, but outside of the Titan bubble in NFL land here in New Orleans, it's pretty obvious to see that the Titans are in a really bad spot. Number one, the current quarterback stinks, and everybody knows it. Will Levis stinks. Again, we're going to have Rich Gannon on the show later this week. I was talking to Rich, just off the air. He thinks Levis stinks. So they're in a really bad spot when it comes to the current quarterback. Levis ain't the guy. Everybody knows that. He got his shot, and that's that. Number two, the quarterbacks in the draft stink, and everybody is saying it. When Albert Breer comes on the program and he says, this is like the Kenny Pickett class, that is code for everyone stinks. Again, we'll have Trevor Sikkema on. We'll see what he says, the Pro Football Focus nerd. We had the Sumer Sports, Sam Brookhouse, the nerd. By the way, Ian, they've got this Sumer Sports does, like this interactive kind of computer thing where they like show the play and the analytics at the same time. Very interesting stuff.
Oh, but see, they're turning you into an analytics nerd by the end of this, maybe anyways.
I'm not sure that's going to happen, but he says the analytics say the quarterback stinks. All the numbers are kind of saying the same thing. The quarterbacks in the draft stink. And I have not met one person here who has been like, I don't think that Shedeur Sanders is legit. I don't think that Cam Ward is legit. Not one person that I've talked to on the air, off the air, thinks that this class is any good. And the third thing is, people don't think Sam Darnold stinks, but they think that he stunk in New York and turned into a pumpkin in the last two games when they were going up against Detroit and in the playoffs against the Rams. And Sam Darnold might stink. I don't know. I have a hard time believing that he won 14 games by accident. So, again, what it seems to be obvious here at the Super Bowl to everybody I've talked to is, A, the Titans' current quarterback sucks. And, again, I think we can all agree on that. B, the quarterbacks in the draft stink. And C, there's fear that Sam Darnold may not be very good or franchise quarterback caliber good, which I've never claimed that he was, but that he might not be good after what happened the last two games of the year. So here's how I see the options. And for some reason, I guess other people see it differently, and I truly do not understand how. Number one, use the first option. Use the number one pick on a quarterback who isn't graded as highly as the quarterbacks picked at 8, 10, and 12 last year, and hope that every single person is magically wrong because, well, they're just all dumb. Like, that has to be the first hope, is that everybody is wrong and you took Cam Ward and Cam Ward's the next Mahomes. I don't think he's the next Mahomes, but that would have to be the first hope. The second option would be to roll it back with Levis, and barring a complete and total miracle, the Titans will stink again next year. Option 3, spend $100 million on Sam Darnold. If Sam Darnold really does suck, then he'll lose enough games for you, and while you'll have $100 million less dollars, you will be able to pick another quarterback. You won't have to use the high pick in order to acquire him. But as of right now, if you were to spend the $100 million on Sam Darnold, you'd have Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter on your football team, And again, let's not kid ourselves. Let's compare option 3 with option 2. And I think we can all agree Sam Darnold is a significantly better quarterback than Will Levis. Agreed, Ian?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. So I have to ask, why are we considering option 1 and option 2? And option 3 can go beyond Darnold. It can go to Daniel Jones. It can go to Justin Fields. It can go to Mac Jones. It can go to one of these other guys. Darnold, to me, again, when we use the word solidifying, seems like the most likely guy to solidify the quarterback position. But why are we considering options 1 and 2? Again, option 1 would be to draft a quarterback with the first overall pick. You don't get Abdul Carter, and you don't get Travis Hunter, and you have to hope that all of these people here that are not just media guys, but are also former players, former GMs, you have to hope that everybody is wrong. What does Corey Curtis always say? Hope is not a strategy. Albert Breer says he talks to people in the league. The analytics nerd from Sumer Sports says he's talking about the analytics. Mad Dog was on the show yesterday, Mad Dog Russo, and he's dog. And he's like, yeah, I'm not touching these guys. So taking a quarterback because you feel like you have to take a quarterback, or talking yourself into a quarterback can be better than he actually is graded, is a horrible idea. That is what the truly incompetent teams do. Running it back with Will Levis. Again, is there a chance that if you have better players around Will Levis with the experience under his belt that Will Levis will be a better player? I mean, I guess there's a chance. But do you really want to watch another season of Levis ball? I don't. I do not think Will Levis, and I do think Will Levis was set up for failure with how the Titans operated last year. But I don't think Will Levis has it in him. You know, in terms of right here, you know, right in the chest, I don't think he has it in him to be able to turn the corner. I mean, he's wound too tight. He's too much of a meathead. He's got too much anxiety at the position. He's going to melt down when things get tough. There's no point in bringing it. So why are we talking about the two options that, again, seem to me to just be, well, all of the information tells us one thing, but we're just going to sit in the corner and pray for another thing. Again, you're going to go into the corner and you're going to sit and you're going to pray and you're going to bow your head and you're going to say, okay, please let everybody be wrong about Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Amen. Like, does that make you feel better? Again, these aren't people that have come to New Orleans with this biased agenda to tell you that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders ain't it. It's what they've seen. It's what they believe. These people are not coming here to New Orleans with the agenda to tell you that Will Levis sucks. But they watched they watched one or two games of what we had to watch every week last year. And again, the consensus seems to be around here. Rightly or wrongly, the consensus seems to be that, quite frankly, and again, I don't want to be rude here, but that Darnold is probably better than the two quarterbacks in the draft. And so this does not seem difficult to me. Again, if I were the Titans, and I would not be telegraphing anything, like Darnold would be my guy, that would be what I'd go offer him a contract. I would not let anybody know because I don't want Minnesota to franchise him. I want him to be just a straight free agent purchase. But I'd be more worried that a team like the Raiders or the Giants or somebody like that would get in on the Darnold mix than I would be anything else. Because, again, the consensus seems to be that these quarterbacks stink. And if you draft one of these quarterbacks, number one, not only are you drafting a quarterback that might stink, and that'll set you back, but you're also not getting Travis Hunter. You're also not getting Abdul Carter. Will Levis not an option to me. I've seen enough Will Levis. He's got 2 years of ball under his belt. So, again, that really takes you to one other option, the free agent market. and there's one guy on the free agent market. And again, I'm not telling you that this guy is going to get you to the Super Bowl. As much as I would love for the Titans to be in one of these, as jealous as I am of the fact that the Titans aren't in one of these, I'm just telling you, to me, it seems like the only realistic option that exists. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program. 615-737-1025. Trevor Sikkim, a Pro Football Focus lead senior NFL draft writer, will join us next on the program. We are live out at Radio Row. Once again, our coverage presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Family Leisure, Volunteer, Hose, and Gasket, Houston Clinic Orthopedics, 312 Pizza Company, the New Cumberland Development, and by Shane Company. That's a lot right there. live out at Radio Row, where our coverage is presented by the fine folks at Houston Clinic Orthopedics, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, Family Leisure, and Shane Company. We're very thankful. Joined now by Trevor Sikkema, who is with Pro Football Focus. Are you the lead draft guy? What's your specific title here?
That is the title that, if I had business cards, that's what would be on it, as the lead NFL draft analyst there at PFF.
Good. The Titans are in the lead position for the NFL draft. I've talked to everybody. They say the quarterbacks suck. Rich Gannon says quarterbacks suck. Albert Breer was on the show yesterday. He says the quarterbacks, everybody he's talked to say the quarterbacks suck. I keep hearing that Ward and Sanders suck. And then in the same breath, I hear, but they're going to go top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Ward and Sanders?
Yeah.
Let's start with Ward, who seems like 1-1. Is he, well, not 1-1, QB1. Is he QB1 for you?
He is QB1 for me. And here's the thing. Like, I don't think that he sucks. I really don't. It's just, you're probably going to have to be a little bit more patient with this class. And the reason why I have Ward as my 1-1 and not Shador is because I think that Ward brings you the higher ceiling, right? When you talk about those 2 to 3 throws that you have to make per game to win NFL games, Ward does it. Ward gives me them, and he gave it to us multiple times throughout the college football season. Now, is his floor lower than you would like? Yeah, because he's got an unorthodox style to him. The throwing motion's a little different. He'll sit there in the pocket and he won't move his feet. It feels like he's almost calm to a fault back there. And so, like, I think that's the part that worries people, is when people think about Cam Ward, they go, well, his floor is lower than, say, the quarterbacks in last year's class. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's a little bit of like, are you just trying to make yourself feel good type of a thing? Because, like, I know Cam Ward can make big NFL throws. It's just, are you okay with the risk that, like, he could also have a lower floor than other players? So the reason why I would still take a chance on him as a first-round quarterback, I have a second-round grade on Cam Ward, so it's not like I think he sucks. Mm-hmm. I have a second-round grade on him, but I'd still take him in the first round because, I was just on with Nate Tice from Yahoo Sports, and he was saying this. Normally, you give quarterbacks like a half round to a round bump, depending on sort of your situation, how desperate you might be for them. And so with Ward, he does give you that franchise caliber type of ability to him. There are just things that might be more catastrophic for him than it was for quarterbacks in last year's class. So that's why it's like, I don't think it's fair to say Ward in particular sucks. It's just, you have to be willing to take a little bit more of a risk with him because of the floor is a little bit lower, but I still think the ceiling is starting caliber at the NFL level.
So I've watched some Ward. I have not watched enough Sanders to be able to tell you what I think of him, but I did watch Ward. Here are my takeaways on him, and when I go through each one, you just say, okay, yes or no. I think he's a legitimate quarterback prospect.
This is Sanders?
This is Ward.
Okay, this is Ward. Okay. All right.
He's a legitimate QB prospect, but he is not a drop-your-pants, Joe Burrow, got-to-take him prospect.
100%. You're correct. Yes.
He is really hard for me to comp because I see a little bit of Deshaun Watson in him, but Deshaun was better in the pocket. Mm-hmm. But doesn't make the off-balance throws that Ward makes. Mm-hmm. Ward, his footwork is so terrible with some of these throws that he makes.
Yep.
But it's like 1 foot in the ground, sideways, throws it 20 yards to the opposite hash mark, hits guy right in the hands.
Yep.
I mean, those are the kind of throws you can't coach. I have a hard time finding a guy in the NFL who he reminds me of.
So the best version, I think, of his style and how he wants to play the quarterback position, like if he were to hit his ceiling as an NFL player, Ben Roethlisberger is the one that I keep coming back to because Ben was somebody who did unorthodox stuff all the time. Sure. I mean, whether it was the throwing motion or the decisions that he made, or sometimes the footwork was all over the place. And Ben had a little bit of scoot to him, especially early on in his career. And I think that Cam can have a little bit of scoot to him too, but he's not going to be this crazy mobile quarterback. But both of them approach the game like, I want to make the big throws that are required to win NFL games.
He reminds me of Kyler, but he's bigger than Kyler, and he's not as an elite of an athlete as Kyler.
See, I can't do the Kyler comp because what you just said is true, but who Kyler is with his athleticism is so much of who he is as a quarterback.
Sure, and Cam Ward is not that kind of athlete.
Right. Exactly. So that's why I can't, because I kind of thought about that before. I've talked about this with guys who work at PFF, and we have these conversations. Hey, who does you remind me of? And there are some moments where the arm talent will remind you of Kyler, but so much of Kyler's identity comes from what he is as an athlete. I can't go there with the full comp. Again, I go back to a guy like a Roethlisberger, who it's just that style of quarterback. And we saw him light it up with Pittsburgh for a handful of years. Now, at the beginning stages of his career, I think that he was a little bit more conservative. And obviously, Pittsburgh's teams, I think, were run by their defenses quite a bit. But how he wants to play the game, to me, is very Roethlisberger-esque when you think about overall arm talent, the level of mobility that they have within their game, and then how they approach the position.
Okay. I also would say he either doesn't recognize the blitz or he doesn't care to.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one to do. Like, he'll stand there and there will be 7 guys coming.
Yeah.
They will not have enough guys to protect it.
Yeah.
He'll clap the hands, turn over, clap it again, and like the ball's not coming out quickly because there's a blitz.
Right.
He just stands back there and is like, oh, someone's about to tackle me. I'll just slide a little bit or I'll move away from him. Or you can't do that in the NFL.
No, and that is I think, again, what makes people go, okay, I'm out. And again, like I don't think that's fair to do with Ward. It's something that you have to work on and deal with. And I understand why he's not exactly for the faint of heart, if you will. Like that is still a phrase that I've been using for a couple of these quarterbacks in this class, actually. But he is almost calm, confident, and poised to a fault. You almost want to be like, hey, buddy, do we need to check your pulse? You realize you're in a game right now. But it's just, he is so calm and confident about it. But confidence is just, it's so valuable at that position. And when I find a player who is as confident within themselves and their own abilities as Cam Ward, it's hard for me to say, yeah, I wouldn't take this guy. I wouldn't take a chance on him. Now, would you take him in top 5? Would you take him number 1 overall? Obviously, it's a little bit of a different conversation. We're kind of talking about situations here with Tennessee for that regard. But this is somebody that it just, that confidence that he plays with is so hard to quit for me, because it's not a guarantee that even some of the most talented quarterbacks hit that.
Trevor Sycamore with his Pro Football Focus. You said you have a second-round grade on Ward. Where are you on Sanders?
So Sanders, I'm a little bit lower on. I have a late second, early third-round grade is what I have for Sanders. So and again, like it's kind of like elicits that reaction, but it's somewhere around. So my comp for Shedeur Sanders that I really love is Teddy Bridgewater. I think stylistically they're, to me, such similar quarterbacks. Just the arm talent, okay, it's not the biggest arm in the world, probably adequate for the NFL level, so it's fine. But you got to think about, you got to be a better anticipator to make sure that it works. And Teddy Bridgewater kind of was. I think people forget about how good Teddy Bridgewater was when he was at Louisville and when he played for the Vikings before the leg injury. He was a different quarterback, and I think that he was ascending to be a pretty good starting quarterback.
So I went to Louisville, so I do remember that.
So that's good. That's good. Well, I went to Florida, and you guys kicked our ass in the 2012 Sugar Bowl game, which I was there to watch.
But y'all said that y'all weren't trying hard in that game.
Right here in New Orleans. No. Look. No excuses for that one. I got no excuse for that one. Instead, I just watched Teddy Bridgewater just absolutely dismantle the team. So going back to that game and other parts of the Louisville career for him, he was ice in his veins. He nails, right? Great under pressure, understood how to read defenses, understood how to read coverages. It's not a super mobile quarterback. He has an adequate arm probably. And I think when people look at Teddy Bridgewater, they go, okay, if Teddy never got hurt, if he never had the leg injury, probably a solid starting quarterback. Probably somewhere between, anywhere between 12 to 20, ranked 12 to 20. Maybe some years, maybe he's kind of cracking around or just looking at that top 10 range, cracking that top 10. But he's probably never going to be that tier 1 or even tier 2 quarterback for you. Mm-hmm. That's the way that I look at Shedeur. I think that Shedeur is a good quarterback. He can win games for you at the NFL level, but I think that it's probably right around middle of the league starter for you, which sometimes you surround him with enough talent, it could work, but it just requires a little bit more of that from a general manager's perspective, a coach's perspective, an owner's perspective to surround him with the right team.
Last one on the quarterbacks. Well, I guess you would take Ward over Sanders, so I'm not going to ask that. 3 years from now, 5 years from now, who's better? Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, or Sam Darnold?
Oh, wow. Oh, what a wild card question.
Well, you get why I'm asking Darnold, right?
Yeah, because they would have. This is probably the options that they're looking at, right? I mean, like you're either going all in on the pro market, you're either going after a guy like Sam Darnold or Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I think I'd probably be crazy to not say Sam Darnold because of the year that he had versus quarterbacks that have not played an NFL down yet. So I think for the spirit of the exercise, I think that I would have to say Sam Darnold because I've seen so much of what he was able to do this past year. Even if it was lightning in a bottle, we've seen it at the NFL level. Even though those last 2 games for him weren't great, I think I would have to probably go Sam, and then I'd say Cam, and because he's my QB1, so I got to take the bet on him, and then I'd say Shedeur.
I do wonder when you see people say, like Pete Thamel was at the Senior Bowl last week, and he said that kind of the buzz out there was Cam Ward's going to be the number 1 pick. When you hear that, forget about what you know of Tennessee or what, this guy reported that was said, or just you've seen the players. Do you think Cam Ward goes with the number 1 pick, given the other quality at other positions?
I would say yes, because even though I love Travis Hunter, even though I love Abdul Carter, I love Mason Graham, those 3, I mean, I think he showcased that over the last 3 years that he's been in college football. Obviously wins the Heisman this year because of how versatile this dude is and just the natural type of football player that he is. I would play him at corner. I would let him be a full-time corner because if you do that, you allow him to then play anywhere from 10 to 15 snaps at wide receiver every single week if you want to. Excuse me. You can't do the other way around. You can't have him be a full-time wide receiver and then just go, hey, we're playing man coverage on this play. Why don't you just go out and play corner? Like that does not work on that side of the ball. You would have to play full-time corner and then be able to moonlight play some snaps at wide receiver. So that's why I would draft him as a corner. I also think his traits are more rare at the cornerback position than they are at wide receiver. That's not to say he's not an impact wide receiver, but just the movement skills, the ball skills, the mirror ability, all that stuff, the length that he has, it's so much more rare at corner than it is at wide receiver. So I would have him play at corner. And I think that would have to be my answer, right? Because as much as I love Abdul Carter, I think it's a great question that you're asking because I think it's tough between these two. They're very good players. Travis Hunter is my number 1 overall player because of just everything that he brings to the table. He's too good at the game of football for me to not have him as that top player there. I think that I truly believe he could be a Pro Bowl wide receiver or a Pro Bowl corner. I really do think.
Then wouldn't you put him at receiver because receivers are more valuable than corners?
So again, this sort of goes back to the usage part. I don't necessarily think that wide receivers are more valuable than corners. I think that if you have a top 5, top 3 elite corner, that's worth more than a wide receiver.
So you would rather have Sauce Gardner or you would rather have Patrick Surtain than A.J. Brown. A.J.'s not the best receiver in the NFL, but he's an elite receiver. He's a Pro Bowl receiver. But Patrick Surtain's probably the best corner in the league.
Right.
So you'd rather have Surtain than A.J. Brown.
I would because, and this is no slight to A.J. Brown, but the reason why I would do that is because you have ample opportunities to get high impact wide receivers every single year. Look at the players that have become available for trade. A.J. Brown's one of them. Tyreek Hill is one of them. Brandon Ayuk's one of them. Deebo Samuel's kind of one of them. Cooper Kupp is one of them. You have an opportunity to go get a wide receiver in the pro market basically every other year. You have the opportunity to draft a stud wide receiver every single year. You know where you get shut down corners? In the top 10 of the NFL draft, and that's it. Basically nowhere else. So that's why I would tell you, like from a team building perspective, as well as a value perspective, I'd rather have that player. Yes. And on top of that, not only do I get the elite version of Travis Hunter, I think as a corner who could be a top 5 corner in the NFL, I still get the 10 to 15 snaps as a wide receiver. So I still think I get to have my cake and eat it too with that answer with Travis.
Trevor Seckham is with us on the program. So what are the quality of the offensive linemen in this draft? Because there's a lot of talk that the Titans may want to trade back because the team sucks so bad. If they do that, I think we have this weird understanding of offensive linemen, which is because offensive line's not a sexy position, we just think, this quarterback's a project or this receiver's a project or this is a project. But like linemen are projects too. They don't just necessarily come in ready to start at right tackle, ready to start at left tackle.
Right.
So when it comes to Banks and Campbell and how good are they, and are they staying at tackle? Because if they have to kick into guard, someone should be fired if you take them in the top 10.
Yeah. That's what gives the people a lot of hesitancy taking one of these offensive linemen. Like the New England Patriots are a great example, right? They're sitting here at pick number 4. They're the worst offensive line in the NFL last year. They give up the most sacks. They give up the most pressures. Worst offensive line, top to bottom, no question about it. And yet, we're sitting here thinking, well, what if they take Travis Hunter? Well, what if they take Abdul Carter?
Sure.
What if they take Tetrone McMillan? This shouldn't even be a question.
And
right?
to your point about corners, the only way you get good tackles are you draft them.
Or you draft them 100%. And so it's like, we're even having this conversation. It kind of lets you know where the offensive line class is. Now, again, that's not to say these guys are bad. It's just, again, a little bit like the cornerback conversation. It's less plug and play than your mind probably wants it to be. But I love Will Campbell. I think Will Campbell can be an all-pro offensive lineman. Now, is it probably going to come on the interior? Maybe. But he's somebody who, it's funny, the Titan situation, I would have let Peter Skoronski fail at tackle before I moved him inside.
I bitched about that last year.
It doesn't really make sense to me why they did that the way that they did. And now he's an interior offensive lineman, so it kind of is what it is. But Will Campbell's the same way. I'd let Will Campbell fail at offensive tackle before I kick him inside, because I know I probably got an all-pro caliber interior player, but can he play the more valuable tackle position? But guys like Armand Membu from Missouri, Josh Connerly from Oregon, like, they are coming around. They are young players who are getting better. And so it might not be this, sure thing, top 10 offensive linemen are going to be going. We know that we've got multiple guys who could be in that top 10 conversation. But Connerly, Simmons, if he comes back, Josh Simmons from Ohio State, if the knee checks out, Membu I mentioned, you mentioned Banks and Campbell, like, there are a lot of offensive tackles that I think are going to go from picks 10 to pick 32 in this draft. I don't know if we're going to get one before pick 10.
Trevor Sigma with this last one for you. Who is not getting talked about enough?
From this draft class?
Yes.
I mean, I would have told you it was going to be Jack Besh, but then he had an absolutely nuclear Senior Bowl, so maybe he is getting talked about enough there. I think Josh Simmons maybe is another one who I just mentioned, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. He had 5 fantastic games to start this season. I think he's a starting caliber offensive tackle at the NFL. He could have been OT1 off the board. And I think that the injury, you got to think about the health. I think that that's something that kind of goes into this equation. But yeah, he's somebody that I think is not getting talked about enough. Honestly, like, even at the very top, like, I think Mason Graham's not being talked about enough. I think this guy's a monster interior defensive lineman. He had elite run defense grades over the last 2 years, and he gives you a lot of extra juice as a pass rusher too. So he is somebody who I think isn't getting talked about enough. And Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver from Ohio State, I'm just kind of rattling guys off the top of my head. Like, I don't think he's getting talked about enough. I feel like he played second fiddle to first Marvin Harrison Jr. and then Jeremiah Smith this year. I think that those guys are players who obviously are studs, but Emeka Egbuka could be a wide receiver 1 at the NFL level as well. So I don't think he's getting talked about enough. And so I guess, you know what? I'll end it out by just saying one of my guys, TJ Sanders, the interior defensive lineman from South Carolina. I've been a big fan of his over the last 2 years. I think he's gone underrated on a really good South Carolina defensive line. I think he is an absolute stud. And he's probably going to go somewhere top of the second round, but he's somebody who I think to truly answer your question, we got around to it eventually. TJ Sanders is one of my guys, and I think that he's not getting talked about enough.
I said last one. I lied because one just popped into my head quickly. Where did you have Will Levis graded? You said second round grade for Ward, low second, early third for Sanders. How did you see Levis coming out?
Yeah, so Levis would have been, I think he was a late first, early second rounder for me. On the big board, he was higher just because of positional value, but he was somebody who I love the arm talent, right? And it's like, all right, we got to bet on the arm talent, and hopefully he could see the field a little bit better. Hopefully his decision-making gets a little bit better, and it really didn't. And that's why Tennessee's in this spot where they've got to move on. But it's hard, you can't teach the arm talent that he has. And so the way that he saw the field, certainly a couple of those Kentucky seasons and games that he had were pretty spectacular. So he was somebody who was, again, needed a little bit of a projection to get better, but I had a late first, early second round grade on Will Levis.
All right, perfect. Tell us about PFF and the draft show and everything else you guys are.
Well, I'm really excited about this season. I mean, we're doing a lot of really great stuff with the big board and how we're categorizing players, and something I'm really looking forward to that I hope we can do a lot this offseason before we get to the draft is give people those team-centric big boards where it's like, all right, hey, we got 300, 400 prospects, and sometimes fans of teams go, all right, what do I do with this?
Sure.
Who's going to fit for my team? And we want to do a much better job this year of streamlining that. So Tennessee Titans fans, for example, they know what prospects we think would fit great with the Tennessee Titans. So we're going to try to have not only our overall big board, but Tennessee Titan centric big board and something like that. And so we're doing that. Everything's over at pff.com. You can see all that great stuff. You got a PFF subscription. And then also the NFL Stock Exchange podcast, myself and Connor Rogers, we're talking NFL Draft 365 all the time. So check us out there as well.
Trevor Sikkema, thank you, sir. Pro Football Focus, Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Christopher Mad Dog Russo is our guest here. What do we think about these two quarterbacks in the draft, Sanders and Ward? And are you worried about the Dion effect if you draft Shedeur Sanders?
Listen. We saw both of them play an awful lot. I don't think Ward's gonna be that good. Okay, I would be. I saw him at Washington State prior. I don't love Ward, so that would make me nervous. Quarterbacks get always, they move up in the draft because they're quarterbacks and they're so important. But the last thing you want to do, look at the Jets with Zach Wilson, look at the Bears with Trubisky. The last thing you want to do is overplay your hand at that position, because then you waste a pick, you waste a couple of years of your team's development, because you got to give the guy a couple of years to see if he's any good. And if he turns out to be a bust, you wasted a second or a first pick on him. I would be very careful on drafting either one of those two guys with one of those top 3, 4, 5 picks.
That was Mad Dog Russo on our program yesterday, and he's saying, hey, don't do it. And Trevor Sickham of Pro Football Focus, just on our show, said a second-round grade on Cam Ward and a late second, early third-round grade on Shedeur Sanders. And yet, as I was talking to Trevor, I was looking at the YouTube chat as I was having the conversation with Trevor Sickham on, and the YouTube chat was literally just like, I don't care what anybody says. I want Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. And it's like, guys, everybody here at the Super Bowl is telling you these quarterbacks aren't that good. I understand you need a quarterback. I agree. You need a quarterback. But what you cannot do is you cannot take a quarterback who's not that good with the first pick in the hopes that everybody's wrong. I'll never forget draft night 2019. We were on the plaza at Bridgestone Arena. I had Derek Mason on one side, Floyd Reese on the other side. And there was a lot of talk about the Giants and Daniel Jones. And the Giants had 2 first-round picks, and there was the thought they might take him at 17 or maybe wait till the second round, and they took him at 6. And I'll never forget being there at Bridgestone Arena that day, being like, 6 for Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones is fine. He's better than some Scarbini, but he's not good. But he's the best guy on the board. We needed a quarterback. You can't do that. You cannot do that. And there's like a bunch of Titan fans out there that just don't want to admit it. They would, no. All these guys are wrong, and I'm right because I want my team to be good, so I'm going to pretend that Cam Ward is the truth. One texter says, in our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, what people don't understand with Sam Darnold, even if he sucks in the playoffs, he's still clearly the best option and gives them the best chance for success. Titan fans are pathologically averse to the possibility of creating an average to above average football team. They seem to think that if they're not going to immediately win the Super Bowl, then it is not worth it. Amen. Every time I'm like, what about this guy? Well, but that guy, he's not Mahomes. None of these guys are Mahomes. You can't just invent Mahomes. It doesn't work that way. How did Kansas City get Mahomes? They already had a quarterback they liked. They just didn't love him. So when they found the quarterback that they did love, they moved heaven and earth to get him. And then because they had the quarterback they liked, they were able to develop the quarterback they loved. You just want to skip the quarterback you love. And it doesn't work like that unless those guys are there. Chris Sanders joins us next here, Stillman and Company. We are live out at Radio Row at Super Bowl 59. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. Hey, Dunkin' fans, come experience the new age of Dunkin' at the grand opening of their newly remodeled Brentwood location, 4930 Thoroughbred Lane this Friday. Dunkin' will be giving away 100 days of free coffee to the first 100 guests in line starting at 8 a.m. Plus, Robbie and Rexroad will be broadcasting live from 6 to 9 a.m., and they'll have Preds tickets to give away. And speaking of the Predators, do not miss tomorrow night's Smashville Live at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue at 6 o'clock. See your Preds star players up close and personal and get autographs and pictures as well. The Preds player guests are Justin Barron and Nick Blankenberg. That's tomorrow night at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue. will get back into your phone calls here in just a bit because I see a lot of people loading up on the lines at 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. Again, we are live out at Radio Row at Super Bowl 59. Our coverage presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, Family Leisure, Shane Company, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, 312 Pizza Company, and the New Cumberland Development. And let me tell everybody this week's Nationals best deals is Princess Hot Chicken, the original and iconic chicken joint. Get half off a $25 gift card now while supplies last. The GameNational.com/deals. Gift card only good for the Tanger outlets in Antioch and inside Assembly Food Hall in downtown Nashville. Chris Sanders joins us now on the program, former Titans receiver, as always on a Wednesday. So, Chris, every single person, whether it's a draft analyst, whether it's a league insider, whether it's a former quarterback, whomever, has come on the show at the Super Bowl, and they have said Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders ain't that good. Our last guest, Trevor Sikkema, said Pro Football Focus's draft analyst, a second-round grade on Cam Ward and a late second, early third on Shedeur Sanders. Chris, what do we make of the fact that everybody keeps saying these quarterbacks aren't very good, and people still think the Titans are going to take one at number one? How do you feel about potentially reaching at quarterback?
I mean, it's scary a little bit to hear that because you hear the experts, say that. But at the end of the day, I know the Tennessee Titans and the organization is definitely going to do their homework. But if you're hearing all that stuff and you're hearing that they don't have a first-round grade on them, then now you need to go to free agents-wise. And I know we're talking about guys that might not want to come here or might come here. You got Sam Darnold, you got Justin Fields. So if that's how, everybody feels about, those quarterbacks, it all depends on what this organization feels. If they feel like Shedeur or Ward can fit the scheme of what they want to do, yeah, you take them. But at the end of the day, if they don't have a first-round grade, if they're not a guy that's going to be the face of your franchise, that's going to make plays, that's going to go to the Super Bowl, that's going to go to the Pro Bowl, then I definitely think you don't take them.
Does it change your opinion on these guys, hearing everybody say that they're not very good?
It doesn't, because at the end of the day, it's all about what the team feels about, the player who they want to pick. I mean, you got, the general manager, you got the head coach.
Well, stop worrying about them. Because if I were to ask you, like right now,
they got to make the choice, though.
But well, of course they got to make it. But I'm talking about you. Like, if you were making the choice right now, would you feel more nervous about taking Ward when everybody's come through here and says Cam Ward stinks?
But it all. Listen, I know. Because I work in at Montgomery Bell Academy, and we discuss these things on who we should play, who fits our scheme. If Shedeur fit the scheme of what we're doing, then I'm definitely going to take him. If Ward fit the scheme of what we're doing, I'm going to take him. So a lot of times, a lot of experts say all this stuff. I don't like him. He doesn't have the orange stream. But if he fits the identity of what we're doing, then I'm going to take him. So if you're asking me the question, if I would take them, yes, I would take them if they fit my scheme. No, if they did. That's how I would handle it.
Okay. So with that being said, how much would you value Brian Callahan's scheme when he's on the hot seat? And this is certainly not a 1 year, commitment with taking the quarterback.
You're asking some doozies, because I'm gonna be honest with you. That's a heck of a question, because he is on a hot seat, and you better get a quarterback in here that's going to take your team to the playoffs or even take it to the Super Bowl. So that's the question that he's going to have to present to this staff and say, okay, do we want to take this guy? But at the end of the day, Shedeur or Cam, you better make sure they come and play right away, and they better be successful. So if they don't feel that that's the route that they want to go, if they feel they want to listen to the expert, if they feel that they're not the guy, then you got to go to free agent wise with Sam Darnold or Justin Fields, or get a veteran quarterback to lead this team until you get somebody else.
So which one do you want?
Oh my gosh. This is me. I wouldn't get a quarterback at number one right now. What I would do is I would trade down and get some more picks and build up this roster and go get a quarterback in the free agent wise. Because the thing about it is, if you just get a player and don't build up this roster, you're going to have the same situation that happened last year. Yeah, you're going to have some good players at different positions, but you're still not going to have the depth to contend against the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. So, what I would do, trade down, get some picks, and try to build up this roster.
Chris Sanders is our guest. I've heard a lot of stuff, both on the air and off the air, about Amy this week here in New Orleans. Basically, when asking about the Titans, it's almost like, that owner down there, and and a lot more than I probably felt the last 2 years. I guess my question for you is, do you feel like Amy's doing the right thing by what feels like removing herself from the situation? Like by saying, hey, Chad Brinker's running football and I'm out of it.
I think, in my opinion, I think that's the best thing to do, because here's the deal. If you get onto these shows and get into all the media and they start asking you some questions, you're not going to be able to answer those questions because you don't know. So the reason why Brinker and all those guys are asking the questions for her, because they know football. They know these things, because if you put her up on the stage and they start asking her questions, it's going to really look bad if she can't answer those questions. So what I would do is, if I was Amy, if I don't know stuff and I don't know what's really actually going on, I'm going to remove myself and let the people answer those questions that know exactly what's going on.
Chris Sanders, what did you make of DeAndre Hopkins saying, yeah,
oh, man.
I took myself out of the Buffalo game because we weren't very good and I wasn't getting the ball. Then I went to Rand and said I wanted a trade, and then Rand traded me to the Chiefs. Thank you, Rand. What do you make of that?
I did read those quotes. Me and TD was talking about it, and, this is just me, and I'm going to say this because I was talking to TD about it, is every receiver wants to feel appreciated. And I think that in his mind, he felt like he wasn't appreciated, because you're with Houston and you're catching 100 balls a year and you're catching 90 balls a year, and here you're only catching 35 and 40. You don't feel like you're a part of the offense. Yes, you're a big time player. Yes, you can make plays, but if you don't feel like you're involved, then you're going to feel like you're not appreciated, because that's why he made those comments. Not that he doesn't care about the organization. It just feel like you didn't appreciate his talent and it wasn't used to the capability that it could have been used at.
Why are you making excuses for that?
That is not an excuse. Jared, let me tell you something. You know why I say that? Because I've been in this position before. I'm going to give you a perfect example.
You didn't take yourself out of the game and cry about it on the sideline.
No, but the thing about it is, there was times that I wanted to. Let me give you a perfect example.
But you didn't do it, Chris. That's the difference.
But I wanted to. I wanted to do that. Okay.
So why didn't you do it?
First year, because I had to tell my pride and my emotions to shut up, because there's time. Listen, there's some stuff that I did behind the scenes that I didn't do in front of the scenes, to where I got an attitude because I wanted the ball. Listen, you go from your first year to averaging 23.5 yards a catch, leading the league. The next year you do the exact same thing, and then all of a sudden you're not getting the ball. You don't think you will feel unappreciated. You don't think you feel like I want the ball. I wanted the ball. But I had to tell my emotions to shut up. Yeah, he should have said all that. I understand that. But when you have a guy that's an alpha male, a guy that catches 100 balls a game, he felt underappreciated, and his emotions blurted it out when they shouldn't have blurted it out.
Do you think that ever would have been okay if Mike Vrabel was the coach of the Tennessee Titans?
It all depends on who it was.
You think Mike Vrabel would have been okay with some guy pouting on the sideline?
It depends on who it is.
No, he would not. That would have never flown.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. If Calvin really was here when he was here, and Calvin really would have pouted and said, "Man, I want the ball," do you think that Mike Vrabel would have cut him?
I don't think Calvin Ridley would have ever done that.
No, I'm just saying. It all depends on who the player is.
Remember when Mike Vrabel cut Rashad Matthews over the same thing?
Yeah, but Rashad Matthews was basically done, man.
Rashad Matthews was their number one receiver the year before.
But did he bring any fear to any defensive coaches? Absolutely not. So you can cut him. That's easy to Jared. That's easy to do.
That was not easy at that point in time when they had Taywan Taylor starting at receiver. That was not an easy. They did not want to cut Rashad Matthews.
He had about 35 catches for 600 yards. That's an easy one. But if you have a guy that's getting 1,000 yards and he's catching 90, 100 balls, and he's about 45% of your offense, you gonna cut him?
I'm telling you right now, they did not want to cut Rashad Matthews. Rashad Matthews was injured. He came back, and he demanded that he get his starting spot. And Matt LaFleur said, hey, you're going to have to earn your starting spot back. And he was like, no, I don't have to earn my starting spot back. And Vrabel said, dude, just chill out. You're going to get your starting spot back. Just you got to play the game. Matthews wouldn't do it, so they cut him. Because Vrabel could not deal with the pouting. So you're telling me, Vrabel wouldn't have stood up to DeAndre Hopkins pouting on the sideline. He would have never allowed that, and it. That would have never flown with Mike Vrabel.
It's not about standing up to some guy. It's about who you gonna say that to. If Hopkins would have had about 90 balls and he didn't catch any balls, 2 games, and he started getting mad at the offensive coordinator and say, "I want the ball." Do you really think Mike Vrabel would have cut him?
You're talking about if he's getting mad behind the scenes. I'm
Oh,
talking about
man.
quitting in
I
the
didn't
middle
say
of a
behind the
game.
scenes. I didn't say behind the scenes. I'm
DeAndre
saying,
Hopkins admitted to quitting in the middle of a game, and you don't have a problem with that?
Oh my no! First of all, he didn't quit.
Yes, he did. He took himself
didn't
out
quit.
of the game. That is
Oh
quitting.
my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Is that not quit, Coach? I don't want to play anymore. Is that not quitting?
Now I agree with that. He should have never walked off the field. Now I agree with that 100%. You make a great point about that. But that ain't what we were talking about. I was asking you that if he'd have caught 90 balls and then 2 weeks in a row he didn't catch the balls and he started pouting, would Mike Vrabel cut him? Absolutely not. It all depends on who you are. So let me ask you a question. If Kelsey started pouting for 3 games and he didn't get the ball, I want the ball, and walk off the field and say I ain't playing this game, do you think that Reed would cut him?
Sure.
Stop lying, Jared.
You know why? You know
Jared,
why I can
stop.
say that?
Stop it.
Do you know why I can say that with a straight face?
Why?
That if Travis Kelsey were to start acting like a
it.
crybaby, that Andy Reid would do something about it?
No,
Because
I didn't say do something about it.
I know
I said
I'm
cut
never
him.
going to get called on it because it's never going to happen.
No,
because Travis
I'm giving you
Kelsey
an
would never do
there
that.
you go. Oh, now you changed it up. I said if that was to happen, do you really think
Yeah.
that Andy Reid would cut him?
Yes, I do.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I will tell you.
So you telling me
I have no room for quitters.
Hold on.
And
so
DeAndre quit.
So you telling me that when I think it was about a year ago that when Kelsey threw his helmet, cussing at the coach because he wants the football, and actually pushed Andy Reid and body chested him to say, "Get me the freaking ball." If that was somebody else, you telling me that he would have got cut?
So you're telling me that if it was somebody other than Kelsey that demanded the ball from Andy Reid?
Absolutely, he would have been. It all depends on who you are.
Again, DeAndre quit. Kelsey never quit.
Oh my goodness.
DeAndre took himself out of the game.
Okay. And guess what? Kelsey took himself out of the game.
No, he didn't. He never took himself out of the game.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't, Chris.
Stop it, Jared.
Again, I don't
It
even
all
remember the
depends on
specifics
who
of
you
what
are.
you're talking about, but he didn't quit on the team. He didn't say, I'm not going back in the game because we're losing.
He threw
That's what
helmet.
DeAndre did.
Hey,
the fact that DeAndre thought he could get away with it, and did get away with it, is the problem with the Titans.
Hold on. Did you ever see DeAndre Hopkins chest bump a coach and say, "Give me the effing ball"? You saw Kelsey do that, but Kelsey was
I don't have a problem with that.
That's what I'm.
I don't have a problem with a player. I do not have a player with a coach on the sideline demanding the ball.
Jared, stop
I have a problem with quitting.
Stop
Travis
it,
Kelsey didn't quit.
Stop it.
What DeAndre Hopkins did was quitting. And the Titans rewarded it. You would have never quit it. You never in your entire career would have ever took yourself out of the game and said, "Coach, I'm not going back in because I'm not getting the ball." You would have never done that, and you know it.
But you know why I never did it? Because if I would have walked out and said I ain't playing no more, my career would have been cut short.
Let me ask you a question. Would Floyd Reese would he have ever let you say, like, "Hey, I'm quitting on the team because I'm not getting the ball"? Would Floyd Reese have cut you if you had done that?
Yes.
Would he have not said, "Oh no, we'll trade you for a bag of peanuts to the best team in the league so you can go win the Super Bowl, Chris"?
That's not. I'm telling you, if you can ask any player that's been in a locker room, Jared, that it all depends on who you are. If I would have did that my fifth season and said, "Give me," I didn't catch it. I didn't really catch any balls my fifth year. Not a lot. But if I'd have went out there and walking out of the game and throwing my helmet, I would have got cut immediately. But if I was catching 120 balls each of those seasons and I did the exact same thing, I definitely would have been on the team because it all depends on what you're bringing to the team.
Well, DeAndre's not catching 120 balls.
He didn't feel appreciated, right or wrong.
What do I care if he feels appreciated? He's paid to do a job.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Jared.
Help me out here.
Jared.
Is his job not to do what the coaches tell him to do?
At 1,000%.
So when he says, "I'm not going in because I'm not feeling appreciated," you don't think he's at all culpable in this?
No, I didn't say he was right on what he did. I'm just saying it all depends on what player you are that can do that. Kelsey can get away with that. He absolutely can get away with that.
Kelsey doesn't quit.
Oh my goodness. So throwing your helmet and disrespecting the coach is okay, but walking off the field and not feeling appreciated is not okay.
Telling the coach I'm not going back in the game is not okay.
No, not just that, but then chest bumping the coach and cussing the coach out. That's okay.
Well, Travis Kelce didn't say I'm not going back in the game. I mean, I think it gets heated on the sidelines between coaches and players and other players. Like, that's going to happen. Tom Brady used to light people up on the sideline all the time. You know, it had to be separated from Bill O'Brien, and I'm fine with that. But what I'm not okay with is I'm not okay with DeAndre pouting and saying I'm not going back in. If you've got an example of Travis Kelce being so mad at Andy Reid that he says I'm not going back in the game because I'm not getting the ball, then we can discuss it.
Jared, we can put a bow on this whole thing, but at the end of the day, it all depends on who you are, who does that. I'm just telling you.
I just can't believe you have sympathy for DeAndre.
No. I never said I had sympathy. I never said that I agree with what he did, but it all depends on who you are. You can't say this is right and this is wrong. Both are wrong, but it all depends on who you are. If I would have did that my 5th year and said I want the ball and this and that, my butt would have been cut. But if I was catching 105 balls a year and I walk off the field and said I'm done, I still would have been on the team. Why? Because I brought so much to that team. That's the difference.
So which one was DeAndre?
In my opinion, I think DeAndre in that aspect, and I don't really know the guy, but I think in that situation, I think he was a little selfish. I think he let his emotions get to him. I think that at the time he wasn't thinking. I think he was upset because he didn't feel appreciated. And I think he made a mistake by doing that. But I don't think that's his overall character.
Yeah. Chris Sanders, as always, on our program. Chris, great stuff.
Appreciate you, brother. Bye-bye.
Stillman and Company. All right, take your phones on that. And the quarterback, you all want to weigh in, we'll do it live from the Super Bowl. Stillman and Company, 105 again. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, and we are live at Radio Row Super Bowl 59. Our coverage presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Family Leisure, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, Houston Clinic Orthopedics, 312 Pizza Company, the New Cumberland Development, and by Shane Company. So, again, we got a lot of texts to get to in the phones. The two big things. Number one, everybody here in New Orleans thinks the quarterbacks in the draft stink, period. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just telling you what they've told us. Ian, you've heard all the interviews. Have they all pretty much said the same thing?
Well, I don't think they've said they stink, but they're just maybe not worth the top 5 pick.
I mean, again, we had a guy on here that said a late second, early third round grade for Sanders. Again, we're talking about the Titans drafting somebody to play quarterback and for that person to be the quarterback now. Like, not, hey, maybe he could be a okay starter one day. Again, we're hearing comps of Teddy Bridgewater. Like, that what you guys want? And the second thing, I cannot get over. I cannot get over Chris Sanders defending DeAndre Hopkins' antics in the Buffalo Bills game that got him traded. And this idea that I give a rat's ass about how DeAndre Hopkins feels, or that I should give a rat's ass about how he feels. Well, we're not winning, and I'm sitting on the sideline, and I'm not getting the ball, so I told the coach, I don't want to play anymore. And then I told the GM, I don't want to be here anymore, and the GM obliged and gave me away for nothing. And it's like, well, you have to understand, DeAndre Hopkins is used to getting the ball. I don't care about that. He's paid to play when the coach tells him to play. That's what he's paid for. Now, if DeAndre was unhappy, I don't have a problem with him turning around and going back into the office after the game and saying, hey, like, guys, I really would like to be somewhere else. Fine. We'll work on a trade. But when you quit in the middle of the game and then you get rewarded for quitting in the middle of the game, I mean, I don't understand how we can back that. I do not understand it. And the text line's even torn on this. One texter says, DeAndre Hopkins didn't feel valued, so he wanted to go to the Chiefs, where he didn't even play 50% of the snaps. People like Chris are making way too big of a deal of how DeAndre Hopkins feels. In the words of you, Jared, this is the NFL. Also, somehow he feels appreciated playing 25% of the snaps in Kansas City. Sounds like he's ring chasing and ran obliged. Again, his motivation for wanting out of here is his business. It's not mine. Was it that you're not getting the ball? Was it that the team saw? Again, that's your business. It's not my business. But the part where you say ran obliged, that's the truth. And again, until somebody changes that, that's going to be the culture around here is if I don't get my way, I'm going to cry about it, and I'm going to cry about it until I get my way. And I hate that. Todd said, I've heard some rumors about Stafford being moved. Thoughts on trading for him? 1, Stafford's not coming here, and 2, Stafford's not getting moved. Matthew Stafford is negotiating with the LA Rams via the public. He will be the starting quarterback next year of the LA Rams. I think I've already guaranteed that. If not, Ian put it down there as a guarantee. One texter on the text line says, Jared, I hope the Titans don't draft a quarterback for the sake of drafting a quarterback. It's like dating. I don't want to waste someone's time if I don't think she's the one. See, I'm very torn when it comes to this have to take a quarterback, have to do something, have to. I don't believe you have to take anyone you don't want to take. I do think if you draft a quarterback number 1 overall, it can't just be, well, they're the best one there. It has to be, we think we're drafting our franchise quarterback. And if you don't think you're drafting your franchise quarterback, then I wouldn't draft a quarterback with the number 1 pick. 615-737-1025. Jim Miller will join us, Sirius XM Moving the Chains. We're going to ask him. He called the Senior Bowl. He was at the Senior Bowl all week doing all the interviews. He even talked to Mike Borgonzi. So I am going to ask if these quarterbacks are any good. So we'll add another person to the list here. He's seen them. He's watched the tape. He's done it. He played quarterback in the NFL. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company live from Radio Row, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And Ian, let's give something away because why not? Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you will win a 4-pack of tickets to the Athletes Unlimited professional basketball games at the National Municipal Auditorium on Saturday, February 8th. Tip-off is at 5 o'clock, and stars playing include Alicia Clark, Sydney Colson, Lexi Brown, Jordan Hurston, Isabel Harrison, and more. Live from Radio Row out here in New Orleans, our coverage presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Family Leisure, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and Houston Clinic Orthopedics, where orthopedics matters and experience. We are joined by Jim Miller, former NFL quarterback and the host of Moving the Chains on SiriusXM every afternoon on NFL radio. Jim, first of all, longtime listener, first-time interviewer.
Okay.
Good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Play you and Pat the cuts whenever you guys end up talking Titans. We always end up saying, well, Jim Miller said or Pat Kerwin said, and I listened a lot this past week at the Senior Bowl, and I got to know, is the quarterback class as bad as everybody is making it out to be?
Yeah, I think it is. I think obviously Ward down there, everybody's banging him because he played only a half in the bowl game. I actually give him a check mark. At least he played.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? At least he played, and he played well, and, tried to give his team his best effort. But, yeah, I don't think it's a really good class. I do like what I saw from Jackson Dart. I do think he's well coached by Lane Kiffin down there at Ole Miss. Just situational play, pro-style offense. Lane's been in the NFL, obviously, and has good ties. So I think he's very well coached, and I think he showed that down in Mobile. But, yeah, I think in order for Tennessee, teams that are out there that need quarterbacks, is probably going to be through the free agent market. Last year we saw the quarterback carousel, musical chairs, where you're going to land. Hey, you look now, probably Kirk Cousins is available. Sam Darnold we know is available. Cooper Rush is an interesting guy. Backup for Dallas. He's won games. They seem infatuated with Trey Lance. I don't know why, but Cooper Rush wins games. But there's going to be a lot of movement in quarter. Then what's going to happen with Rodgers? What's going to happen with the other Jimmy Garoppolo? There's a lot of veterans who are going to be out there and be available that you probably would put ahead. I mean, Sanders, hey, I love Deion Sanders. His son's not ready to play pro football at quarterback. Let's be honest.
Jim, when it comes to Sam Darnold, what do you see?
Sam Darnold, I see coming out of college at USC, he had a lot of turnovers. When he rolls out of the pocket and he tries to make a play, he tends to do too much, and that's when the turnovers happen. I thought he played great till down in the stretch in those big games that matter, and that's really where you need to play your best. So everybody was thinking, hey, could he be franchise tagged? I doubt that Minnesota does that now. I doubt that they do. You can probably get him as a starter to compete, and Tennessee should be interested in that. You want to know why? Because Brian Callahan's offense is the same as Kevin O'Connell's. It's a seamless fit, but the issue with Will Levis is turnovers, right? Darnold, that his whole issue of his quarterback career has been turnovers. Great till the games that mattered most, and then what did he do? Turn the ball over. Mm-hmm. I like him. He's a great guy. I know guys that coached him. He's a great teammate. Guys love him. But those key moments in situational play where you need to rise up and play your best, that's where he kind of tailored off towards the end of the year. But what a great year for Sam Darnold and a great story.
Jim Miller's with us. You guys talked to Mike Borgonzi last week at the Senior Bowl, and he talked a lot about Kansas City and his experience there. When he got the job, he talked about the key was to solidify the quarterback position. I think people heard that and thought Mahomes. He said, he's talking about Alex Smith. Could Sam Darnold represent the Tennessee Titans version of Alex Smith where, hey, he's the guy right now, build the team up? Because remember, that quarterback class was E.J. Manuel and Geno Smith. Yeah. You build it around Darnold, and then you go look for your guy while you have Darnold.
Yeah, I think that's why Kevin McConnell has had such success. He stayed away from the things that give Sam problems. He got great weapons with Jefferson, Addison. Look at the tight end. He's Hawkinson's a great player. And so he had the good weapons around him, and it's the play calling too. Kevin O'Connell knows, all right, here are the issues that give Sam problems. Let's avoid those. Let's accentuate what he does really well. And I think they had a magical season. And then you factor in their defense. He had a good support group. I think we know when he was with the Jets, there wasn't a lot around him. The defense wasn't that good, and typically that's why you get drafted high, and the Jets have done that more than once. The Bears have done it more than once. Bears are on their third first-round quarterback now. Mm-hmm. They screw this guy up. The issue isn't the quarterback. I think we know it's you got to point the problem in a different direction.
How much better are Carter and Hunter than Ward and Sanders, knowing that quarterbacks are always going to have a premium on them? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to Carter and Hunter, how much better are they as prospects?
Yeah, well, depending on, there's two guys probably right ahead of Jackson Dart. I still have to do more homework if that's how I would rate them. I know how they see them now. But again, once I arrive to Mobile, that's when I start diving in. Yeah, I watch from afar during the regular season, but I'm focusing on the NFL. If I see, Cam Ward playing, or I'll watch it to see. All right, I like this, I like that, and I get my initial thoughts. But now's kind of where I really do a deep dive, and so I'm not willing to go there yet. I do think there's a separation, but I do think Jackson Dart he closed the gap a little bit.
It's funny, Jim Miller with a Sirius XM that you bring this up. Sumer Sports, they brought their chief draft analyst on the program, and Thomas, Thomas is so close to the vest when it comes to what the Sumer Sports analytics say.
Yeah.
But the chief draft analyst said the analytics are not kind of Ward, they're not kind of Sanders, they are kind of Dart.
Yeah.
And that the hard part is, the eye test when it comes to Jackson Dart. Does that surprise you?
Well, here's the thing. Say, I'll give you an example. Say Sean Payton last year. They were kind of pigeonholed into Bo Nix, right? Because of where guys fell. And, hey, were the Giants going to trade up to get Drake May? They wanted Drake May. They thought about taking J.J. McCarthy, but then Minnesota takes him. So all that's left was Bo Nix, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, Sean Payton had his problem to solve. They had done their homework. He said, Jim, when everybody – talks about for Bo Nix. He's got 61 college starts. He's played a lot of football. When he was down at Auburn, he kind of struggled in a traditional offense. Then when he transfers up to Oregon, this kid's lighting it up, right? Lighting it up, doesn't get sacked. I think he had 10 sacks, at the final season. But if you take out all the bubble screens, all the behind the line of scrimmage throws, Sean Payton said, you want to know what? He's actually the most accurate passer of all the quarterbacks that came out last year, his down the field throws.
Mm-hmm.
And so they rated him high for that. They knew that this was really their guy. They kind of predicted how the quarterback, and we need to do our homework on this guy. Sure enough, they take him. He kept him in his comfort zone, kept him in the shotgun. They'll integrate him underneath the center. And I go back to that. I think about when Philly drafted Kevin Cobb out of Houston. He was a second-round pick. Pat Shermer, who was the OC, I know Pat because he was a tight ends coach at Michigan State. I said, hey, man, how are you coaching him? The kid, he's never even taken a snap under center. He goes, Jim, his first 2 years in pro football, we never even allowed him in the gun. Every practice squad rep, everything he did, underneath the center because they wanted to get him comfortable because a lot of the game, it's not all shotgun. We know it's infiltrated and there is more gun, but you got to groom and work with these guys to get them more assimilated underneath the center, and that's what Sean Payton's going to do with Bo Nix.
You know what I find fascinating? I was on Mad Dog Radio last weekend, and so I had all the audio, for the different topics that you guys had at the Senior Bowl. So whether it was Stephen Jones or Mike Borgonzi or whomever, it was like every general manager, every coach, was on Moving the Chains. I wonder the stuff that you guys heard off the air at the Senior Bowl, as much as the stuff you guys heard on the air at the Senior Bowl about kind of the class as a whole.
Yeah, I think we know it's not good. There needs to be more development and more needs to be done. And it's interesting that, to me, there's only certain teams that know how to develop quarterbacks. Like I said, you look at the Bears, this is their third first-round quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just blame it on the quarterback. Everybody screams, well, we're not winning. Mitch Trubisky took them to the playoffs twice, and they talked him out the door. Then they draft Justin Fields. They talk him out the door. Now what's going on with Caleb Williams? Did they screw up? Maybe they should have, tried to get the young man from Washington. Because Jaden Daniels, they passed up C.J. Stroud. Now they passed up Jaden Daniels. Both those guys kind of look better than what the other product is proven to be.
Last one for you, Jim Miller with us on the program. Well, how do you feel about Brian Callahan? Brian Callahan's a very nice guy. We all know Bill is, kind of the Don, it feels like, of offensive line coaches. But it was a rough season for Brian Callahan. Sure. And there's no doubt he's on the hot seat entering this year. What's kind of your feel for him as a coach?
I like him because he's obviously Bill Callahan being there. That is a seasoned coach. He's very good. I'm glad they brought him. I'm surprised Cleveland let him go. But I get Kevin Stefanski letting him go work with his son. Everything I need to know about Coach Callahan, I learned, I think it was that third week of the season, because you came up in Chicago and your quarterback started to do stupid things in the red zone that cost your team games, and the coach's reaction was appropriate. It was appropriate. That football is a bar of gold. It's not something you treat lightly. It's not something you treat careless, and that's your first responsibility as a quarterback. And so if your quarterback's going to freak out and do those things, it's going to cost you games, and that's why they question their quarterback right now.
Jim Miller, Sirius XM, Moving the Chains every weekday afternoon. Jim, thank you for stopping by.
All right. Thank you, man.
Yep, Jim Miller.
Good luck, Tennessee.
Company. We continue 102.5 The Game. Okay, so let's go to the analytics on the two quarterbacks. What do they say?
Shador Sanders, man, he's very accurate is what I'll say, and especially as compared to expected. So the throws that he was making as compared to every other person who's made those throws, how many is he completing? Very good, one of the best in the NCAA. The problem, he's like at the bottom of the tank in the NCAA in terms of avoiding sacks. Y'all currently have Will Levis right now. He massively, massively struggles with that. That will not get much better. So you're going to have to hope that all those other things that Shador can do will improve over Will Levis. Cam Ward, a little bit more of a play creator, but some of that top metrics in terms of accuracy, decision-making, stuff like that comes down a little bit. So he's a little bit more muted, a little bit more average than Shador at certain things, but he doesn't have that deep bad side that Shador has when he runs around and gets sacked.
Stillman and Company live out at Radio Row. That right there was Sam Brookhouse, the senior draft analyst for Sumer Sports. So we just had Jim Miller on the program, Sirius XM, and I wrote down the quote that he said when, again, talking about the quarterback class. He said, quote, "It's not good." And you just heard right there about how the analytics are saying, hey, Shador Sanders is accurate, but he holds on to the ball too long. And the analytics don't seem to love these guys, and the draft gurus don't seem to love these guys, and the former quarterbacks don't seem to love these guys, and the people around the league, according to Albert Breer, don't love these guys, and so on and so forth. I mean, at some point, if you're a Titan fan, you may have to come to the realization that these guys aren't franchise quarterbacks. Again, I watched Cam Ward's tape. I have not watched Shador's tape. I have watched Cam Ward's tape, and I see a little something there. But I don't see anything special there, other than the ability to throw off platform, which I do like. But I understand. You guys want to think that the Titans are going to draft their Mahomes, their Allen, their Lamar. And because in the case of Lamar, teams passed on him, it's C. And I just have a hard time when everybody who is, in theory, an expert on this stuff is saying, yeah, if that makes any sense. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Kevin says, who do the Bills have before Josh Allen or the Ravens before Lamar Jackson? Every situation and the way teams find their quarterback or even great players is different. We may not be able to employ the exact same strategy as the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens, but we can work from the same principles. I'm not saying Ward or Sanders are the guy, but no one knew for sure Mahomes was the guy, Allen or Jackson. Sometimes you don't know until it is too late. The thing the Titans cannot do is think that there's going to be a consensus on who the next top quarterback is. They have to know whether or not they think he's great, not what we think. Okay, there's a lot to unpack from that. So, first of all, when it comes to the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, he was the 7th overall pick in the draft. He had a first-round grade, according to everybody, and Mel Kiper Jr. had him going to Cleveland with the number 1 overall pick, Josh Allen. Josh Allen would go number 1 in this class, period, as a prospect. Now, when it comes to the principles, because I think that is a great point the texter makes. You can't do it exactly like the Chiefs did it. You can't do it exactly like the Bills did it. You can't do it exactly like the Ravens did it. But in all 3 cases, they had plans for the quarterback. The Buffalo Bills made the playoffs. And they said, you know what? We need to tear this down because we're not going to go far with Tyrod Taylor as the quarterback. Now we're going to lose by doing this. But they're okay with that. And they lost the first year with Josh Allen. And they had an elite defense and made the playoffs the second year and lost in the playoffs probably because of Josh Allen. But they had a plan. They brought him along, and boom, he popped. Mahomes, we know the story there. Lamar, remember, Joe Flacco was the quarterback. They worked Lamar in a little bit here and a little bit there. And then after that, it was, okay, we're going to change the entire offense. We're going to go get Greg Roman. We're going to run a new system, and we're going to do this all around Lamar. They all had plans. And I agree. You can't do it exactly like they did it. to me, you've got to have a plan. And what I don't think is a plan is what a lot of you are just thinking, which is, I just take Cam Ward number 1. Done. You can do that when there is a consensus quarterback out there that everybody likes. You can do that when there is Joe Burrow out there that everybody likes. But you cannot do that if the guy isn't that good. And what everybody here at the Super Bowl is saying is these guys aren't that good. Everybody is saying. One texter says, the same experts think that Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, and Trevor Lawrence are generational quarterbacks, even though they don't win. Sure didn't hear them praising Lamar, Purdy, or Mahomes 2 months before the draft. That comes from Andrew. First of all, Josh Allen does win, and Josh Allen is a generational quarterback. Josh Allen is going to the Hall of Fame. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes are all going to the Hall of Fame right now. They're on a path. I think in the case of Mahomes and Lamar, if they quit tomorrow, they're in. Allen, it's questionable. I think he gets in. The problem with Allen is he can't get past Mahomes, and we all know that. But these guys do think that Josh Allen's generational. Josh Allen is generational, and Josh Allen wins. Again, Justin Herbert threw for 5,000 yards his second year in the league. Justin Herbert, I don't know if you guys remember when they beat the Titans a couple of years ago, but he ran to his right and threw off a 1 foot 30 yards down the field to Mike Williams to set up a game-winning field goal. That's a special play made by a special player. I agree with you guys on the Trevor Lawrence thing, but Trevor Lawrence was an elite draft prospect. He had a success in college at the highest level. He has the size. He has the arm talent. He has the mobility. Like, Trevor Lawrence was a legitimate top draft prospect. I mean, right now, I think if you were to ask guys around the league who would they take, Lawrence or Purdy, there'd be a lot of guys who would go with Lawrence over Purdy. Mahomes is the one that a lot of people didn't praise. But if you hear like, hey, Kansas City loved him, had a plan. New Orleans with Sean Payton loved him, had a plan, etc. One texter says, didn't the same draft gurus pass on Jalen Hurts? He's not great, but 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. All right. First of all, Jalen Hurts, to me, is a byproduct of, if you want to build up the... Remember when Vrabel said you had to be great around Ryan Tannehill? That's Jalen Hurts. He has 2 all-pro tackles and the best offensive line in the NFL. He's got the best running back in the NFL. He's got 2 receivers, a tight end, and the number 1 defense. And his owner has paid for top coordinators Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. And I just don't know if that'll be enough to get past Mahomes. So Philly has the best of everything except quarterback, and that might be why they can't get past Mahomes. I am starting to lean towards picking Philly, though, as far as the game is concerned. Also, I've never been to the Super Bowl and cared less about the game than apparently this year. And maybe it's because in the 3 years we've been doing this, that we've been coming to the Super Bowl, the Titans have never been further away from the Super Bowl. That I couldn't tell you. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. Somebody in the YouTube chat said, here comes the system talk with Jalen Hurts. It's not system talk. It is reality. Jalen Hurts has a 200-yard game from Saquon Barkley and almost loses to Matthew Stafford in the snow. It's the last time Jalen Hurts made a wow play. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. We'll hit them coming up here on the program. 1025-1063 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of our coverage live here at Radio Row. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical has been in business since 1990 and is a family-owned and operated company, and I know how great they are because I use Hiller at my home. Jimmy Hiller was recently named amongst the most admired CEOs because of the way he truly, truly cares for his team and his clients. Hiller takes care of the customer on every job, every single time, and they stand behind their work with 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be or the service is free guarantee. And again, I know this because I use Hiller. Learn more at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Falls, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call that fish truck today.
I've been doing this a long enough time to know, like, kind of pick up on the way people are talking about players and where things are kind of trending. And this feels to me a lot like 3 years ago when Kenny Pickett was the first quarterback selected, went 20th overall, and then I don't think another quarterback went until like the end of the third round. I'm not saying it's going to be quite like that, but you know, I think digging through Cam Ward will be an interesting process for a lot of people. And I think getting to a comfort level with him will be a process. And with Shador, I think he's sort of an open book, and you sort of know who he is, like personality-wise, toughness, smarts. Your question with Shador is, where's his ceiling? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, does he have the ability to, in 3 or 4 years, have a team competing, if you're in the AFC like the Titans are, with Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, obviously Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson? Like, is he going to get you there? Or in 3 or 4 years, are you going to be looking at it and saying, yeah, he's fine, but it's not good enough? I think that's the risk with Shador.
There you go. That was Howard Breer on our show talking about the quarterbacks in the class. And again, comparing it to Kenny Pickett. And I mean, it just, maybe I'm just reading too much of the YouTube chat, but it's like, I see the YouTube chat. And I see people that are like, oh, all these guys are wrong. Bert Breer's wrong. Jim Miller's wrong. Trevor Sikkema's wrong. The Sumer Sports Analytics are wrong. Mad Dog is wrong. You all are wrong. And our Titans are going to get the greatest quarterback. Give me Cam Ward at number 1. And it's like, just because you want that to be the case doesn't make it the case. And again, the Albert Breer's not making that up. Albert Breer didn't say, oh, hey, I'm going to go on in Nashville and piss them off. Like, I think I'm going on in Boston at some point this week, and I probably will piss them off talking about Vrabel. Now, again, I'm not going to wake up just to piss them off about Vrabel, but it's just probably going to happen because I'm going to tell them what I think. And what I think is that Mike Vrabel's not the second coming of Vince Lombardi, which a lot of people would have you believe that he is, in fact, the second coming of one Vince Lombardi. One texter into the text line says, I know this won't be aired, but those torpedoes that are demanding a choice of one of these young quarterbacks are the make Tennessee great people. Ian, I don't understand that.
I don't know. I don't think I followed quite all the way.
This guy sent this text out like, I know this won't be aired because this is so controversial, but let me say a bunch of gibberish that doesn't mean anything. It's like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. One texter says they have to sit either quarterback if they draft them. I mean, they're not going to do that. Teams don't sit quarterbacks anymore. So here's what I would hope would happen, because I'm not convinced that just because you want to trade the number one pick, there's going to be somebody out there who wants to trade for it. Again, the Titans need a quarterback as much as any of these other teams need a quarterback. And so if none of these quarterbacks are good enough for the Titans, why would the Browns, why would the Giants, why would the Raiders trade up in order to get that quarterback that's not good enough for you? But the one thing that you do have that those teams don't have is you do have, in theory, patience, which is you could lose this year with Daniel Jones at quarterback. And if you lost with Daniel Jones, your GM's not going to get fired. Now, the coach will, but he don't care about that. But again, like, you're not going to get fired. Whereas the Giants don't have a choice. They have to draft a young guy, and the young guy has to look like he's on his way in order for them to save their jobs. So that might be the only thing. But again, in our society, quarterbacks do not sit unless there is a legitimate reason to sit them. And the legitimate reason is not their own development, which is the real legitimate reason, but it's who's ahead of them. So Minnesota, because they had Sam Darnold and because JJ got hurt and they were winning, that's fine. We don't need to see JJ right away. Patrick Mahomes could sit because they had Alex Smith. Lamar Jackson could sit because they had Joe Flacco. But if you don't have a real quarterback ahead of the young guy, then the owner's going to end up demanding, the fans are going to end up demanding that you play the young guy. And in the case of Ward and Sanders, if you draft them with the number one pick, who's on the market that you're going to sign that you're going to sit the young guy behind? It doesn't exist. And I'm not saying that, that you should have to play him right away. I'm just saying that's what's going to happen. One texter into the text line says, Jared, you're on the clock. Who are you picking number one? Well, again, the draft happens after free agency. So if the Titans sign Sam Darnold to a 3-year contract, what will happen is all of the text line that's Ward and Sanders are all going to now be like me and be all in on Sam Darnold. I mean, I cannot wait to see the distinguished gentleman's just unfettered love for Sam Darnold, a guy he calls fool's gold, if the Titans sign him. You guys better hammer on Darnold the way you're hammering on him now. But if that's the case, then I don't have to take a quarterback number one because I have my quarterback. In fact, it wouldn't make any sense for me to take a quarterback number one because, again, I have my quarterback, and that would be Sam Darnold. Now, if I did that and I was on the clock and I couldn't trade out of the pick, I would probably take Abdul Carter. But I haven't necessarily gotten to that point yet. But I do hear people saying, Jared, I want to know what you think they should do. I think they should sign Sam Darnold to be the quarterback, and then I think that they should make the trade and move back in the draft and move to a spot to where they can still get the McMillan kid out of Arizona or something like that.
As far as the value with the first overall pick, like, I don't know. At this point, if the Titans were to trade out, is it just an expectation that it won't be the full value of the first overall pick given the lack of prospect there?
Right. So if you trade to 3 with the Giants, you're probably not getting their first rounder in next year's draft, which I would love. You're probably getting like their second rounder in this year's draft.
So is there like, I don't know. We'll have to kind of figure out the baked in expectation or lack thereof as far as price tag for this pick.
Especially when it comes to the difference between Hunter and Carter and the other guys that you would be picking. Because as of right now, you can get Hunter or Carter or something like that for whatever that's worth. One texter says, Jalen Hurts is in the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, the Titans continue to suck. And I'm a Titans fan, but I would gladly take Hurts over the hot garbage they currently have. Hey, where was Jalen Hurts before the Titans traded away A.J. Brown to Jalen Hurts' team? And where was A.J. Brown's team when Jalen Hurts wasn't the quarterback, but Ryan Tannehill was? But you see what I'm saying? Hurts has the best receivers. He has the best running back. He has the best line. He has the best defense. Like, I would like to see if you put Kyler Murray in that spot, how well he'd do. Because I bet he'd do pretty well, in all seriousness. Malcolm Butler, a clean slate but a full plate. Former Super Bowl hero, former Titans corner, will join us on the program live from Radio Row at Super Bowl 59. Our coverage presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Family Leisure, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, Houston Clinic Orthopedics, 312 Pizza Company, New Cumberland, and Shane Company. We're live again from Radio Row in New Orleans. It's 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Company 1025, 1063, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, live at Radio Row at Super Bowl 59, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, Family Leisure, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, Houston Clinic Orthopedics, 312 Pizza Company, New Cumberland, and Shane Company. Former Titans corner Malcolm Butler, Super Bowl hero Malcolm Butler, joins us here on the program. It's good to see you, Malcolm. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, man? What's up, 615? How y'all doing?
Good. So you said something like the first day you were a Titan, because I don't know if you remember this, but you signed that big contract with the Titans.
Yes.
You showed up to camp, and do you remember what everybody wanted to talk about for about the first month that you were with the Titans?
Wow, I was benched in the Super Bowl.
That's all anybody wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
And you had a line that day. You've probably never said it again in your life. Ian, how many times have we said this line over the last 5 years or however long it's been?
Probably like 20 or 50.
20 or 50 times. You said clean slate with a full plate.
That's it.
Is that like a Malcolm Butler saying, or was that a one-time thing that came out of your mouth and we just stole it from you?
Nah, that's look, I gotta start trademarking my stuff because I said a lot of stuff. So
I know.
You know what I mean? Yep.
Okay, so let's start with this. What do you think about your time as a Titan? Like, I mean, when everybody here at Radio Row sees you, it's, Super Bowl hero Malcolm Butler. And then there's, of course, the Super Bowl with the Eagles and all of that stuff, which, quite frankly, I don't really give a rat's ass about because I care about the Titans. But a lot of people probably don't think about, outside of Nashville, about you with the Titans, but you were with the Titans right in the period where the Titans were, good.
I'll say that Tennessee Titans treated me like a church's chicken biscuit. Sweet, warm, and buttery. But
Malcolm, by the way, is here on behalf of Church's Chicken.
yes, indeed. I'll tell you about the Tennessee Titans. I think that the Tennessee Titans was going in a different direction with Mike Vrabel. Like, we were so close to going to the Super Bowl, but we lost to Patrick Mahomes. We was going into the right direction. I don't know what happened. Like, we let A.J. Brown go. We let Malcolm Butler go. I don't know who is that. We let him go, and things just wasn't the same anymore. I don't know what was going on in the front office, the back office, whatever. But, like, I was a big fan of Steve McNair. I always wanted to be a Titan. I love their running game. I love the grit. I had a good time in Nashville with the Titans, in Tennessee with the Titans, but I just and I always root for the Titans, but I don't like, it's just different without Mike Vrabel and I guess John Robinson. I don't know who was doing what or what was going the right way or the wrong way. It's just not going in the direction when we had it with Kevin Byard and
Derrick Henry,
all those A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill. Like, it's not going in the same direction.
Did it feel different to you? Because you were there in 2019, and I remember, I believe it was the Carolina game that you broke your wrist, right?
Yep.
And so you missed kind of that run. You were there, but you weren't there.
Yep.
And boy, they could have used you over Tremaine Brock because he stunk. But
man, we would have went to the Super Bowl. I'm sorry for yelling. I always said that.
You can yell on this show.
I always said that if I was in that game, we would have went to the Super Bowl. Like, you missing tackles on Patrick Mahomes, and you, like, I know cornerbacks supposed to cover, but you got to know how to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And I ain't disrespecting nobody that missed tackles, but like Patrick Mahomes come on my side, and that's the spot that when he was shaking everybody and scored I don't know if he scored or got the first down. Man, I would have changed the game. It only take one play to change the game, and obviously I know that.
Obviously, you're living proof of that. But was it different from that kind of where Tannehill had taken over? And then at the end, where it was like the expectation around here was to win, and people would get mad that you wouldn't win enough. At the end, was there a different feel?
Like, winning is contagious. Winning is contagious. People hate losing. People always want to win. So the standards is always high, especially when you're a pro at anything. So it has its pros and cons, but like, it is what it is.
Malcolm Butler's with us. Do you think the Titans made a mistake firing Vrabel?
I think so. I really think so. And I love Miss Amy to death. I love Miss Amy to death. She's a sweetheart, but I think firing Mike Vrabel was a bad decision. It ain't been right ever since.
Who you think's a better coach, him or Belichick?
Come on, man.
That's it. We got.
They won rings together. We all won rings together, but Bill Belichick, 100%. Mike Vrabel might be more of a player's coach, but he's not. He's not. No, he's not messing with Bill Belichick.
Malcolm Butler's with us on the program. Who would you say right now you root for, the Titans or the Patriots?
You know I'm going with the Patriots.
Really?
Yes.
So even though the way things ended, and I know you went back there for like a cup of coffee or what, but like even the way things ended, that still doesn't kind of cloud versus where the Titans, where you did get released, but it wasn't on bad terms like that.
I think it was on bad terms.
With the Titans?
Yeah.
Why?
Because like I had to get comfortable. And like obviously I wasn't performing at the expectation that people expected me to do. I'm in a different defensive scheme, playing for a different coach, playing with different players, but that's no excuse. Just do your job. But like the year, my third after my guarantee was up, I was the top 5 cornerback in each category: tackling, pass deflections, picks. You think you don't need to give me another chance, another year, an extra year? You let AJ Brown go? Like it's kind of weird to me. I don't know if they were trying to save money or whatever, but
Well, what do you think it was? Do you think they wanted to stick Jackrabbit Jenkins and Christian Fulton out there instead of you? Or do you think they just didn't want to pay you, so they pay those guys less?
Hey, look, it is.
You want to know what I go back to? I still can't get over. There's a lot of moves that they made that I didn't like. Malcolm Butler's with us. After the AFC title game run, Logan Ryan goes into free agency. And I think we can agree. Logan had probably lost a step from what he had been, but was still a very good and valuable player.
Yes.
And they had no interest in bringing him back, even after the market wasn't really there for Logan. They didn't say, okay, hey, let's get you back on a 1-year deal where we can incentivize you up, that we can. It was just, they just didn't want him back. And I was shocked by that.
See, that's what I'm telling you. AJ Brown, Kevin Byard, Logan Ryan, like Malcolm Butler, like you had players on that team that really was committed to Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel was doing it his way, or whoever way he was doing it, but they was doing it the right way, and players played a butt off for Mike Vrabel. The Titans ain't been close ever since all those guys left, and that's just the truth. And I love Nashville, but like that's just the truth. And I'm really mad. No, I ain't mad. I'm peed off about it because I played for the Tennessee Titans, and I want them to do good. I want the Patriots to do good, but I'm really mad about it, and I really care about the Tennessee Titans.
That's good. I do too. Tell us about Church's Chicken.
Hey, look, make sure anybody in New Orleans, make sure y'all pull up on us, South Claiborne Street, 1600. We having a block party from 1 to 3.
What day?
Saturday.
Okay.
Kids eat free. Hey, I'm signing autographs. I'm doing all that. And then somebody got an opportunity to win chicken for a whole year. A whole year.
How you stay skinny with all the chicken that you eat? Because I remember there was a story about you in Alabama and all the biscuits and chicken and all the stuff. And I was like, man.
Hey, 50 a day, keep the weight away.
Malcolm Butler, he's got a clean slate with a full plate here on the program. By the way, congratulations. I know you're here to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the unbelievable interception you had against the Seahawks. Probably everywhere else wants to ask you about that, but I do appreciate you and your time with the Titans as always, Malcolm.
Man, yes, sir. Hey, Nashville, I love y'all, man.
All right, Malcolm Butler, Stillman and Company. We continue 102.5 The Game. To me, the moment where the Titans really went down the toilet was when they fired John Robinson in the middle of the season. I mean, who does that?
Yeah, that was weird. And for whatever it's worth, I had heard a lot of it was like Amy wanted the building. This is gonna sound so stupid that like Amy kind of wanted the building to be a happy place, and that like she didn't like the tough, hard nosed and that honestly like wound up hurting Vrabel last year in in that hiring cycle where I think people thought he would come in and walk all over everybody, and that's why they didn't want to hire him because a lot of these owners,
he's going
as much as they say like they will prioritize winning, it's like they also want to be involved. They also want to be able to walk in and
Sure, it's why Brian Schottenheimer's the coach of the Cowboys.
be part like oh, what a great show, what a great environment we have here. Like that's not that program. That program, trust me, I've been around that program since I started covering the league. Like John Robinson and Mike Vrabel were both from that program. Like that, the Bill program is a tough, hard-nosed program that you need a certain type of player and person to operate at a high level in it.
That was Albert Breer on our program earlier this week. We're live out at Radio Row here at Super Bowl 59. Great stuff with Malcolm Butler. Oh, my God. I'll tell you, this place is a freaking zoo for whatever that's worth. Okay, I have to, Ian, I have to tell you what just happened. So we're getting ready to come back from break, and I hear the Breer cut start.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this table that's kind of by our table. And not close, but far enough. And this guy just sits down. And I don't want to talk too loud because he's like right there. But he sits down. The audience can hear me, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So this guy like sits down and he takes his shoe off. And he puts his shoe up to his nose. And he smells his shoe. And then he put his hand in the shoe, rubbed his hand on like the sole or like the insert of the shoe, right? And then he put his hand up to his nose and sniffed it.
Radio Row, only the finest of people.
And am I the only person that thinks that's freaking disgusting?
It's pretty hardcore. Be walking around Radio Row, just giving a good whiff of your shoe. You wonder what compelled him to have to want to do that. Was there was he told there was maybe a little smell? Did he smell something himself? Was there moisture in
I'm
there?
telling you, he sat down, took his shoe off, put it up to his nose, and just sniffed it. Like,
maybe there was contraband in there.
Oh, man. Good interview, though, with Malcolm Butler. Man, Malcolm Butler seemed kind of mad about the Titans firing Mike Vrabel. I was actually kind of shocked by it. I was kind of shocked. Not that again, like Derrick Henry loved Vrabel and LeBron loved Vrabel. And so some of those guys loved Vrabel. I'm not sitting here saying like I'm shocked that the players would think that Vrabel's a good coach. I think Vrabel's a good coach. But, man, he was like, he was like, hey, I'm mad at the Titans. We had a great group of players, and they tore that thing down. Now, look, they would have had to tear it down at some point no matter what. It's not like Babe Ruth is still playing right field for the Yankees. At some point, you have to move on. But I do understand. I was trying to kind of get at that resentment with Butler. Like, do you blame Robinson? Do you blame Amy? Do you blame Vrabel? Like, what do you put the blame one way or another on? Now, I didn't love the fact that they cut Malcolm Butler when they did. They cut him and Dennis Kelly on the same day, and I liked both players and thought they were both good players. But Malcolm Butler also, I don't think, played like a meaningful snap in the NFL after the Titans. But I did enjoy having Malcolm Butler on the show. One texter says, so what I get from the Butler interview is that the Titans owner is cheap. The Titans really do have the worst owner in the league. I wouldn't say the worst. They're Cleveland. up there bad. Didn't we do like a ranking like a couple of weeks ago where we said like Amy was definitely in that worst category?
It was a tier, yeah. So it's one
And
of
it was
some
like
tiers.
yeah, it was like her and Mark Davis and everything else as far as that was concerned.
I do think you had her in the bottom tier.
Eric says that was the most genuine laugh I've ever heard from Jared. That was great. Had me cracking up about the shoe smelling. I mean, I just watched the guy take his shoe off and smell it right in front of me. I'm like, yo, like this is not OnlyFans. This is Radio Row.
You're in
Like,
public.
yes, get it together.
To your
Like,
hotel room, at least.
what are we doing here? One texter into the text line says, screw Vrabel. I mean, here's the deal with Vrabel. I like Vrabel. I think Vrabel's a good coach. I think it was time for the Titans to move on from Vrabel. And I think Vrabel is going to fail in New England because I do not think Mike Vrabel is qualified to pick the players for an NFL team. I do not think so. As much as I think other people will think it, and I'm sure they'll like, but it's the great Mike Vrabel. I hear you. But he didn't work as a scout. He didn't work as a director of player personnel. He didn't work as a director of college scouting. He's never done that. You know, again, Mike Vrabel is a great player, and he definitely has, you know, a football life, like the documentary's called. And he should get his own documentary one day. He really should. But he's not a personnel guy. He's a coach, and he played. That's what he is. And so I think he's going to go to New England. And I think he's going to fail because they're going to let him pick the players, and I think he's going to stink at it. And he's already got enough of his buddies in there that would make me nervous between Cowden and Downing and Hodeling and those guys. It would make me nervous. But I am kind of shocked by the amount of former people that were here then that are like, I mean, how could they get rid of the great Mike Vrabel? I'm like, I don't know, because his coaching staff sucked and he had been given too much power and all of those things for whatever that's worth. One texter says, honestly, I'm still trying to figure out why Borgonzi chose the Titans. What did he say that we don't? I will say this. I am shocked, too, when it comes to Mike Borgonzi, that Mike Borgonzi took this job because with the Chiefs, you'd be up for a job every year. You'd be up for a job next year. You'd be up for a job the year after that if you didn't want to, because the Chiefs will be right back in the Super Bowl. I've been to Radio Row at the Super Bowl 3 times, and the Chiefs have been here every time. It'd be nice to one year be on Radio Row when the Titans are here, but I've never been here where there's been another team representing the AFC. In fact, there's been one team since Tom Brady was the quarterback of the Patriots. There's been one team that has represented the AFC in the Super Bowl other than the Chiefs. It was the Bengals once. So when you leave the Chiefs, you know, there better be something when it comes to the Titans that you really can sink your hooks into. And I'm still trying to figure all that out. One texter in the text line said, great interview with Malcolm Butler. Let me say this. Butler had a very odd tenure with the Titans. Remember, he got burned a bunch early on. Like they signed him for all that money, and then he showed up, and then he got burned. And then after he got burned, it was like, well, he'll be okay. And he did kind of figure it out. Then he got hurt. Then he came back, and he was fine. And then they released him because of the guaranteed money. And it was a very odd tenure. But I thought it was like a very seminal signing when they added Malcolm Butler. It was kind of like, no, they are the Patriots now. Vrabel's the coach. Robinson's the GM. Malarkey's out. Logan Ryan, Butler, they are the Patriots. Where they signed him and Deion Lewis in the same day. It's a very fascinating tenure. Jason Fitz joins us next on the program, 615-737-1025. How bad is he hearing the QB class is, and what are the Titans going to do? We'll do it with Fitz next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, we are live at Radio Row at Super Bowl 59 in our coverage presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Family Leisure, Shane Company, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, 312 Pizza Company, and the New Cumberland.com. We are joined now live at Radio Row by Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports, Fox Sports Radio. I actually had somebody at SiriusXM telling me, yeah, we were booking Jason Fitz on the show because Jason Fitz, and I'm like, man, I remember it feels like it was just yesterday that Fitzy and I were talking about how, we're going to get Fitzy in right here at 102.5. And now Fitzy's a big superstar. Fitzy, good to have you. Good to see you. Go ahead.
It's kind of crazy when you think about how that journey was so rapid, but also how long it feels like it hit me the other day. Like I left the band in 2016, right? So here we sit, it's 2025. I've been doing this at this point longer than I toured with the band Perry, like, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like,
I know they're going back on tour, by the way.
Yeah, no, I hear that every once in a while. Like,
you're not going to be a part of that.
I'm not going to be a part of that.
Something like that.
I'm not going to be a part of that.
All right, Fitz, everybody here says the quarterbacks suck. And I know you've been saying it for time and time again on this program that you think these quarterbacks stink. Sanders, Ward, now Jackson Dart, I guess, is part of the mix. You've been saying probably since before the season ended that you were like, yeah, these quarterbacks are not good. Every single person here has said these quarterbacks are not good. And yet I think there is this prevailing thought that Cam Ward will be a Tennessee Titan with the first overall pick. And I just can't get over if everybody thinks Cam Ward is not good, then why would you take Cam Ward with the number 1 pick?
I just had this conversation, not even a debate. We weren't even on air. Just sitting there with a couple of guys that I respect pretty well in this conversation. And one of them said, look, what do you do when you desperately need? And so sometimes when you desperately need, you take the swing. And the thought is like, hey, man, we got to have something. And my pushback to that is constantly, does that really help you? Like, you draft a quarterback. It's not, let's say Cam does go number 1. Is it Cam's fault he's overdrafted at that point? No. Does it change the way that his entire trajectory would be viewed? Yes. If he was drafted in the 2nd round, he might get time to develop, might get time to turn into a better pro, might get a better system, and then all of a sudden he comes out and he has some success. If he's drafted number 1 overall, if he has a bad first month of his career, everybody's like, what a bum. He was a bust. Can't believe he was a first-round draft pick. Like, the way we judge Bryce Young is different than we would judge him if he'd been drafted where Derek Carr was drafted. So it becomes this weird cycle where there are just a handful of teams that are desperate at the quarterback position. And as a result of their desperation, they will reach at the quarterback position. But I still think if I ran an NFL team, I say loudly and proudly, if I ran an NFL team, I would stick to the principle of best player available. If you are picking first in the draft, it's because your entire team has needs everywhere. If you have a best player available in this year's draft, if you believe that that's Hunter or Abdul Carter, you take them without question. You don't take a quarterback just because you need one. And guess what? That stinks for fans that say, well, what's the answer going to be? You know what the answer going to be next year? It's part of a process. It's part of a journey. No, you're not going to have this sudden Commanders, Texans thing. Sorry, I hate that for you. But you're also not going to draft a quarterback that you just simply shouldn't draft.
So what would you say to the people that are like, hey, not everybody knew Jaden Daniels was this good this time last year. Not everybody knew Bo Nix was this good this time last year. Not everybody knew, because everybody's saying these quarterbacks stink. I think there's like a pushback from the Titan fan to say, no, you guys just don't know what you're talking about.
So last year, everybody knew that Jaden Daniels was going to be this good. Maybe not historic, but last year everybody believed in Jaden. Like, from the outset, if you talk to people right now, a year ago today, and you said, what do you think of the quarterbacks? The number of people that I talked to that are smart a year ago that said, I'd take Jaden over Caleb. Like, that isn't a shocking new thing. So most of these quarterbacks that have tremendous success don't come from out of nowhere. They don't come from, sure, there were questions, like you and I, we've talked about this before. You and I were on air doing something for 102.5 the year that Mahomes was drafted.
Yep.
It's fair to say that there were questions about Mahomes, but there wasn't a single person in the world looking around saying, well, maybe not a single one, but you know what I mean? The overwhelming perspective wasn't Mahomes sucks, right? Like,
sure.
The overwhelming perspective on most of these quarterbacks has been like, okay, we all understood that Josh Allen was going to need some time, and we didn't know. And people were really harsh on him for needing that time. But, like, it is rare that everybody just comes in and says, wow, this quarterback's like, the people that I'm saying that are telling me today that these quarterbacks are not good enough are the same people that a year ago right now said Jaden Daniels should be the number 1 overall pick. And a year ago right now, we're saying Bo Nix is going to go to the Denver Broncos. Sean Payton believes he's their guy. And that's real. So I think the hard part is that you're living in the bubble of for a lot of people of Nashville. and they're not thinking about some of these analysts were very right. Not all of them, but most of them.
So Jason Fitz is with us. I think the Titans actually have options. I think the Titans and Raiders have options that other teams do not. I believe that Mike Borgonzi could take Sam Darnold or take Daniel Jones or take Justin Fields, like a bridge quarterback, or in the case of Darnold, pay him starter-ish money, but not elite starter money. And they're okay. Like, they don't have to get a young quarterback to show that they're on the right track right now. I do feel like the Browns have to take a young quarterback because regardless of whether or not Deshaun's healthy, he's still $46 million. And on the other side of it, I think the Giants maybe have to take a young quarterback because Joe Shane and Brian Dable have to show that they have the trajectory of the Giants in the right direction. The Jets, I don't think they're going with Sam Darnold because he's already been there. The Titans and the Raiders could go the Darnold route. Somebody has to go the Darnold route. Do you see it the same way I do, which is Cleveland and the Giants almost have to draft a quarterback, even though these guys might stink? And can the Titans use that and the fact that they're lumped together to the Titans' advantage?
Yeah, so I agree with your entire assessment. And that's why the shopability, if we want to say that, for Tennessee is, do you want to go down to 3? Like, you're trying to convince the Giants that, hey, if one of these two quarterbacks really separates, and I think this is what, if you're a Titans fan, you should be rooting for right now. You're rooting for Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders to separate and not draft them. You're looking for one of those guys to start to rise through the combine process.
Well, let me just say this. I mean, Brian Callahan made, I thought it was like a semi-innocuous comment comparing, he was asked about Shedeur's arm strength, and he said, hey, a lot of people said Joe Burrow didn't have great arm strength when he came out, and Joe's makes up for it with anticipation, and Shedeur does the same thing. And it's like, Brian Callahan compares Shedeur Sanders to Joe Burrow. It's not exactly what happened, but, I mean, I would want that out there if I were the Titans. I mean, I would want the league to think like, these people, they love this Cam Ward. They're going to take Cam Ward. They're going to take Shedeur Sanders. They're going to take one of them. Just if for no other reason to get the stupid Cleveland and the Giants to do something stupid.
Yeah, I mean, you want one of those teams to move up to 1, and then you move down to 3. You don't want to move lower than 3 because then you can still get your difference-making playmaker and quarterbacks go 1-2. Like, that's a dream scenario for the Titans, frankly. It just that math works the best way. That maths. It gets so tough for me. Like, I'd rather sell everybody else on why they need that person and then not put myself in that situation. And the other side of it is, if we're having a real honest moment, there is nothing that the Titans are going to do this year. No player they're going to add this year that makes them a Super Bowl contender next year in my mind. So for all of this conversation about quarterback, when you know that, all right, now we're not winning a Super Bowl next year. Like, you're right, Dable's under right now pressure, and Cleveland's under, we're up a creek because of this contract situation.
So it has to be a young guy.
Right. So, but if you're the Raiders or if you're the Titans, you're looking around saying, hey, this is a 3-year process anyway. So if we don't get quarterback year 1, we'll look at year 2. And if we don't get quarterback year 2, we'll look at, you don't have to be desperate right now. You can be desperate next year and figure out a way to trade up if that's what you need.
Jason Fitz is with us. What do you think the Raiders are going to do? I see them as a wild card as far as the Titan plans are concerned. I like Pete Carroll. I don't really know John Spytek. He could be great. He could be Rand Carthon. I don't know. I don't know how much say Carroll has in the operation. Chip Kelly's now in there. Brady's making the decision. So I find the Raiders to be the ultimate wild card as to what will happen as far as the quarterback carousel is concerned and where the Titans fit in.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting there is that I don't believe Chip Kelly takes that job as offensive coordinator. Even though it's $6 million, he's already independently wealthy. He's not going to turn around and trash his reputation for this gig particularly. I don't think Chip Kelly takes that job unless they had a clear-cut plan of what their attack at quarterback is going to be, which to me means either they've talked to somebody behind the scenes and they feel like they have an inside track to a Sam Darnold, or they feel like they have an inside track to trading up, or they love the third best quarterback in this year's draft. And I don't love that option. I don't love that.
Could it be Will Howard?
I mean, it could be that they feel that Will Howard will be
Chip
available.
Kelly wants Will Howard in
day 3 or whatever, late second round, whatever, like wherever that plays out. But I don't think Chip Kelly takes that job, making $6 million a year or not, knowing that his reputation will take a massive hit if he's not successful with the Raiders. So they must have a clear-cut plan. I just am not. Nobody I've talked to has any real idea of what that plan is.
Nobody has an idea what the plan is.
None.
Clearly, Pete Carroll doesn't get the job if the plan's not in place.
Well, what I do know is that Brady is calling the shots. Like, people around the Senior Bowl told me that when you talk to Raiders executives and you asked about anything about Tom Brady, there was just sort of this wide-eyed, like, Yep. I mean, I can't say anything, but I can simply smile and nod to confirm that Tom Brady is calling all of the shots there.
How
And
much-
he loves Shador.
So how much does it worry you as a Raider fan that Mark Davis is clearly obsessed with stars? He made it clear last week when he made those Gruden comments, and it was like his star was Gruden and Gruden was out, that his star is now Brady. And he, Shador is a star. He might not be very good, but he's a star. And if Brady loves Shador, I mean, we had Trevor Sycamore from Pro Football Focus, told us he has like an early third round grade on Shador. So how much of this would worry you that they're going to sit at 6 and hope to get Shador?
I would, if they draft Shador, I'll be disappointed internally, to be honest. But for me, it's not about Mark or Tom. It's really about Pete Carroll.
Really?
Right?
So you think Pete has the juice in this?
No, I think Tom has the juice, but I also trust the input of Pete Carroll. Like Pete Carroll found Russell Wilson in the draft, crapshoot to get somebody that late. I think that's fair. He also realized that Geno isn't washed, right? Like, so Pete has 2 big landmarks on his resume. So I think that there is some level here of I trust Pete's ability to identify talent. What's hard, in talking to a couple of people that know Brady pretty well, is that Brady loves somebody that's stuck around for 4 years and works really hard and has overcome all these things that he keeps saying he loves about Shador. He loves these things in a quarterback. I just don't like. I mean, that's one part of it. Do we know if Brady can actually? Let's remember, John Elway found Manning, but he never drafted a successful quarterback,
Sure.
right? Like he managed to get Peyton over to the Broncos, but he never drafted a successful quarterback. I worry about the presumption that just because Brady played it means that he can draft one.
Well, I mean, Michael Jordan ran a basketball team and they
Right.
sucked. Derek Jeter ran a baseball team and they
sucked.
sucked. So I don't,
Yeah.
I love Brady more than anybody, but I'm not sitting here thinking Tom Brady's going to save the Las Vegas Raiders.
No.
I'm more worried that either the Raiders are going to do something stupid, which is very, very good to the Titans, maybe trade up to number 1 and mortgage the future and all of that, or they're going to do something very, very smart, which is going to, again, make it harder for the Titans.
I don't think they're going to mortgage the future just because even in the introductory press conference, Pete Carroll cut off John Spytek, the new GM, and he said, we're going to build around a quarterback. And to me, what he's telling everybody, and he also referenced in his press conference that everywhere he ever went, it took a couple of years to get the culture right. I think he's telling everybody. Mark Davis afterwards said, we understand this is a process. I don't think they're going to reach desperately because I think it's again, like there is nothing the Raiders are going to do right now that will make them better than the Chiefs. Nothing. So if going into the season that your best case scenario is second place in your own division and maybe you're trying to somehow get to the playoffs, that's a much different way to build your team than to sit there and say, we got to win a Super Bowl right now. I don't think the word Super Bowl are being spoken by anybody in the halls in Vegas.
Fitz is with us here at Radio Row. Couple of other things. The sentiment that I'm hearing around here. The first thing being that these quarterbacks, Ward and Sanders, stink. We've already covered that. Number 2, people here, man, they really do not think highly of Amy Adams Strunk. Like, this is the 3rd Super Bowl in a row I've been to, and there wasn't as much Amy trashing at the first 2. Maybe a little bit last year because more people, I think, saw bad owner fired great Vrabel. But now it's like everybody I talk to is like, that owner is off her freaking rocker. Do you feel that same sentiment?
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty fair to say that the worst teams get to the worst spots because of the worst front office structure and the worst ownership groups. I mean, I do believe culture is created from the top down. And if you have an incompetent owner, they got to get really lucky. And I think the Texans got lucky with a great quarterback and a great coaching hire that turned a lot of things around. Heck, the Commanders had to sell to a new ownership group that came in and changed absolutely everything. The Lions eventually had to sit back and, take their lumps a little bit and just say, we're going to stick with this and see this one through. But I think bad teams are bad for a long time because of bad ownership. And, I don't think you can half-ass owning a football team. And sometimes it feels like ownership groups are so busy trying to chase something, they don't have a set business plan like everything else. I want the CEO of my favorite football team to be wildly detail-oriented and wildly specific in exactly what their 5-year plan is. And you live in this market. You feel that way from the Titans?
No.
I mean, there's just a moment.
They have a new 5-year plan every year.
Right. And you just can't do that. At some point, you've got to be a CEO. And I just don't believe that I don't believe that the right focus as an organization from the top down.
The other thing that I hear around here in these parts is that it sounds like Minnesota's not going to tag Darnold. I'm kind of stunned given the quarterback market and that they can probably get something for him. It sounds like they really like JJ. Breer was on the show the other day, and Albert Breer said he's ahead in his rehab and that the Vikings are probably going to be comfortable letting Darnold go to market? Do you think that's a smokescreen, or do you think that's legit? And if it's legit, should the Titans just sign Darnold and be done with it?
Yeah, if it's legit, yes. I'm stunned. I'm with you. I still think franchise him. At least force this thing to play out and try and get something back. I'm pretty stunned by what I'm hearing. It's the same thing that everybody thinks those last 2 games won't be overcome. You got to move on. I'm stunned by it. But yeah, if Sam Darnold's on the open market, Sam Darnold is not just better, he's light years better. He's in a different category, a different class than any of these quarterbacks. Like somebody said to me the other day, the best case scenario for this quarterback class is that they exceed expectations and you end up maybe with the Geno Smith. Like I just continually say, you end up with maybe a Geno Smith. I'd take a Sam Darnold right now over the possibility that everything breaks right and you get a Geno Smith.
Jason Fitz, as always, on our program, our coverage at Radio Row, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, Family Leisure, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, Houston Clinic Orthopedics, 312 Pizza Company, the New Cumberland, and Shane Company. Fitz, great stuff as always. We will see you back home.
Appreciate you.
Stillman and Company add Fitz to the list of people that, again, now not that we didn't know this about Fitz, but add Fitz to the list of people who think this quarterback class stinks. And have you watched any tape on Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders?
I tried to watch a few clips of Cam Ward the other day through just like an online social thread somewhere, but no actual like games yet.
But do you feel like you've heard enough to feel confident that thinking Ward or Sanders are the answer to your problem is not a good idea at this point with all the people we've brought on here, all the people we've rolled through here?
Well, I mean, definitely sounds risky.
Because the entire, like, the YouTube chat is, all like, oh, these people will see Sanders and Ward will prove them wrong. And it's like everybody who doesn't have skin in the game is like, yeah, nah, when it comes to these guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's maybe if people are afraid to like put themselves out there or they're just not feeling it.
One texter says, how are Sanders and Ward perfect for the Browns and Giants, but would be awful or considered a reach if they were drafted for the Titans? I don't think anybody would say it's a reach. I mean, right now, the mock drafts have the Titans using the first overall pick on Cam Ward. That's what the consensus seems to think is going to happen. Whether or not that actually happens, I don't know. But that's what the consensus seems to believe. Here's why Sanders and Ward, I think, would make sense for those teams as compared to the Titans. Because Cleveland, now look, maybe the owner's fine with spending $85 million at the quarterback position alone, but I doubt it. So I think it would almost be like we have to draft a guy with a cost-controlled salary, while we're paying Deshaun. That would be the first thing. So, hey, we want a young guy, and we don't want to have to pay top dollar since we're paying top dollar to Deshaun, unfortunately. The second thing, I think, at least for me, the second thing with the Giants is the Giants have to show that they have a quarterback of the future. Like, and not the immediate future, but the long-term future. They have to pull the rabbit out of their hat. It's not going to work, but they kind of have to do that. They back themselves into the corner because they signed Daniel Jones to the contract extension. Mike Borgonzi hasn't done any of that. So Mike Borgonzi doesn't have to, go get the quarterback of the future. He can look at Amy and say, look, there's not a long-term option here that's better than us rolling with Sam Darnold. So that's what we're going to do. That's what I think the difference is. One texter says, am I crazy for feeling like there aren't other teams who are going to want to trade up for the number one pick? So I'm a little torn on this. We had Thomas Dimitrov on the program on Monday. He was the former general manager of the Falcons. He interviewed for the Titans GM job. And I asked him about the idea of, hey, if you don't want the number one pick because you don't believe in any of these quarterbacks, why would somebody else want to trade? And he said, there's always somebody who falls in love with these quarterbacks. And he said, you're going to have to not expect the traditional haul for trading away the number one pick. So once you get over that and say, okay, the Giants will give you a second to move to 3 instead of 3 ones to move. Once they do that, then the question is, are you still willing to take it because this class isn't that good? But I'm torn on this because there is a part of me that thinks, hey, if I need a quarterback and the pick's not good enough for me, why would the pick be good enough for the other teams that need a quarterback? One texter says, go for Aaron Rodgers and draft Shedeur Sanders. Amy would get a full stadium with us fans and better TV coverage. Win or lose, it would buffer to a new stadium. Do you know who the coach of the Bills was before Sean McDermott? It was Rex Ryan. And I will never forget when the Bills hired Rex Ryan and they sold out season tickets that day. I remember thinking, Rex Ryan? Like, that's what gets people excited? But the thing is it's not about what gets you excited. It's about who can coach. I highly doubt they sold out season tickets the first day that they had Sean McDermott. But Sean McDermott's a better coach than Rex Ryan. So I don't care about what would get the fans excited. Mahomes from Texas Tech and sitting on the bench probably didn't get the fans in Kansas City excited. But let me tell you what probably did get them excited. When he got out there week 1 of year 2 and threw for 8 gazillion yards. And I'm sure it's great now. One texter says, I'm personally a fan of Cam Ward, but any quarterback we would potentially draft would get murdered behind this offensive line. So drafting any quarterback this year is without question the wrong move. Go for Sam Darnold as a bridge and get a better QB class down the road. I agree with the second part. Here's the other thing. The Titans have to fix the offensive line, wide receiver, tight end. Like, they have to fix all that this year. Because I keep hearing, well, it'd be no good with our line, Jared. No good with our receivers, Jared. Right, you got to do something about it. Like the Washington Commanders did something about it when they signed Tyler Biotish and Nick Allegretti. And they did something about it at wide receiver by adding Noah Brown and Olamide Zacchaeus and, again, a group of people. Like, they did a lot of different stuff. So the idea of, well, they'll get killed behind our line if we draft a quarterback. Well, again, you can fix the line outside of using the first overall pick on a lineman. I think it starts by finding a left tackle, which is going to be very difficult, but finding a veteran tackle that can play preferably left tackle so I can flip J.C. Latham back to right tackle, which is where I think he belongs. But you got to do some of that. Jared versus Joe. Joe texted me, and he said, are we not doing Jared versus Joe this week because of Radio Row? I was like, no, we're doing Jared versus Joe. And then he texted back, oh. So I don't know if he's prepared or unprepared for Jared, but that's next. It's Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, live from Radio Row at Super Bowl 59. And our coverage presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Family Leisure, Shane Company, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, 312 Pizza Company, and the newcumberland.com. Caroline, who has been up and about here at Radio Row, is with us for Jared versus Joe. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, how we doing over there?
Well, I'm outstanding, as you well know.
For some
Very,
reason,
very,
that
very
sounds
happy.
like it's dripping in sarcasm a little bit.
Well, I mean, I've been very lucky lately in my life.
You have been.
There you go. Joe is with us as well. Joe, did you think you were getting out of Jared versus Joe today? That text you sent me made it sound like you're not excited to be doing Jared versus Joe.
Oh, I didn't say that. I just, you got guests on Radio Row. I thought maybe, you might want to hit up those guests, man. But, whatever you want to do.
You were like, you know what? I really just don't hold a candle to the people Jared's having on right now at the Super Bowl. So maybe he doesn't want me to.
Exactly.
Of course I do.
Yeah, Jared. Yeah, Nashville's coming to face. Nashville's going to get a baseball team. I'm working on my Mad Dog impersonation after listening to him yesterday.
I heard Paul I heard Paul rip your ass for it today. With that, it's time for Jared versus Joe.
Big discussions.
What's the deal with this quad?
Bigger arguments.
I was right. I had my finger on the pulse of this team.
It's so dumb. It's time.
Oh, it was the cap. Cap.
For Jared versus Joe.
For you, this is actually kind of well reasoned.
Brought to you by First Horizon Bank. Big bank muscle. Small bank hustle. And by Pella Windows and Doors.
We make the rules around here now.
Now on Stillman and Company.
Let's get it on.
It should be noted, I just got an email from the Titans as part of a mailing list that 2025 season tickets are on sale now. Guess what player they have on kind of the season tickets on sale now? Guess what player they have on the graphic?
I feel like it should be Jeffrey Simmons, but the way that you're saying it makes me believe it's like Will Levis.
It's just a generic player. You can't even tell who it is. Like it
Telling.
could be Otis Reese for all I have no idea.
Could be OJ.
Like, it is just it's a skinny player. It is just a generic player. Not even a number. You can't even like see a hint of a number on the shoulder pad or on the chest. They are like bottom of the barrel there. Okay, Caroline, where are we starting?
Okay, Jared, you go first. DeAndre Hopkins explained a little bit of his perspective on the trade from the Titans at media night on Monday, which I will say was one of the most hectic events I've ever been a part of. Was his explanation, did it make you feel good about the culture of the Titans? How did it make you feel about the culture of the Titans?
It made me think that all the talk they had about building a culture was all bullcrap. So DeAndre Hopkins admits to the fact that he quit on the team in the second half of the Buffalo game because he was unhappy that the team sucks and he wasn't getting targets. And then the Titans, instead of holding him accountable for quitting on the team, the Titans then gave him away to the best team in the league for a bag of peanuts because they wanted to do right by him. I mean, it's embarrassing. That would have never, ever, 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 ever happened if Mike Vrabel was the coach. And I listened to Chris Sanders today try to tell me, well, you have to understand, DeAndre Hopkins is used to getting the ball, so it's okay that DeAndre quit on the team because he was unhappy not getting the ball. And I'm like, the fact that DeAndre Hopkins thought he could act like that is embarrassing enough. The fact that he did act like that and he got away with it and got his way is like throwing a temper tantrum in the middle of a department store and still getting the toy. And all I ever heard about was how good the culture was and how I couldn't fire Rand Carthon during the year because they were building a culture. The culture's a joke. It's a joke. What did Vrabel used to always say? Culture's about when you're losing, not when you're winning. It's easy when you're winning. When you're losing, DeAndre Hopkins wants to pout on the sidelines, and then they gave him everything he wanted. Amazing. It's embarrassing.
So the only thing I really want to quibble with there, Jared, is you said they trade him for a bag of peanuts. What did the Chiefs get? What did the Chiefs get in the deal?
They got DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. Doesn't this year kind of tell us that he basically fell off the cliff as a player?
I mean, DeAndre went right to the Chiefs and had like 2 touchdowns in the first game he played for them.
Okay, and then what? And what has he done? Like, he's a non-factor. He has fallen off the cliff as a player. And, yeah, does it speak well to the Titans culture? No. I mean, if you want to blame Rand for, like, coddling him and I'll make sure, to send you where, then the Rand's gone too.
So I don't know if that's a Rand thing or a Callahan thing or I don't know. But, I mean, the fact that Brian Callahan had a player on the sideline do that is pretty telling. You and I both know that would have never happened if Vrabel was the coach.
Well, it might have happened, but it probably would have been dealt with more swiftly by Vrabel. I mean, Vrabel had, Tier Tart. He had players over the years who he had issues with. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, Brian, Vrabel was able to create a culture that actually involved accountability to some extent and more professional behavior, I guess. And yeah, in year one, there's really nothing very positive to report or to perceive about this Titans culture under Brian Callahan.
But all they told us was that it was great.
Well,
vibes were great. They were building a culture.
What team talks about their crappy culture, Jared? I mean, like, yeah, they told. Yeah, I mean, that's what they all say. And some of them are lying, and some of them are actually have good cultures.
That is true. Aaron Rodgers'
teammates. You have good players, and you win.
Aaron Rodgers' teammates always talk about how great things are with Aaron Rodgers, as opposed to the reality, which is Aaron Rodgers makes everybody miserable. But I do think it makes me think that Mike Borgonzi's going to have to be the bad parent because Brinker's not going to do it and Callahan's not going to do it.
Well, okay.
Caroline?
Okay, on to the next. Whole lot of quarterback talk happening at the Super Bowl. Who will be the better quarterback in 5 years? In your opinion, Joe, we'll start with you. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, or Sam Darnold?
In 5 years. I'll go with Sam Darnold. I mean, I'll go with the known commodity. I'm not super excited about either of the rookies. I'm not convinced that Sam Darnold's going to be a star or a great player, or a top half of the league quarterback, but I think this year he proved that he can play, and I have no idea if either of those guys can play. I mean, look, I've said I like Shedeur better. I feel like Shedeur's floor is higher. I feel like he would be the safer choice. I think Shedeur has a pretty good chance to be a starter in the NFL, and be a decent player. Cam Ward is just, to me, it's look, I see the ceiling. I see the traits. I am concerned about all of it coming together in a consistent, reliable player. But in both cases, I've got to go with the known commodity. I mean, that's a pretty easy answer for me.
So if this were a pretty easy answer for you, Joe, then wouldn't it be pretty easy as to what they should do at quarterback?
Well, I've been saying for a while now, I'd be out on both of these. I'd be out on all the quarterbacks in this draft. Yeah, so and also, yes, my top choice is Sam Darnold. Well, no, that's not true. My top choice is Matthew Stafford. If we're talking about anyone who's remotely, potentially available, then he would. Well, I mean, there's talk that they may be looking to move on. He would be on the fringe of possible.
Joe, give me a percent chance. Give me a percent chance that just in a vacuum, forget about the Titans for a second. Give me a percent chance that Matthew Stafford is not the quarterback of the LA Rams next year.
I don't know, 10?
I was going to say 0. 15%?
Okay, I don't know. I'll go with people who report on the Rams over you, but thank you. There is some sort of a chance.
Okay, so
but regardless, you're starting a separate argument, which is not the question.
Okay, and then the second question I would have to go after that first Stafford one, in which you grossly, I think, overestimate how many people would be interested in him, would be what is the percent chance that if Matthew Stafford had the ability to leave the Rams and wanted to leave the Rams and would leave the Rams, that he, with $364 million in the bank, after 5 years ago, he asked out of Detroit because they suck so bad, would come to the Titans?
1%.
So there has to be a 10% chance or 15% chance that he's free, and then 1% that he wants to go to the Titans. So that, by just rough math off the top of my head, is like a 0.01% chance of Matthew Stafford being the quarterback.
That's amazing. That's amazing Louisville math by you. Let me review my sentence. I said, yeah, Darnold will be my starter. Well, okay, I'll throw Matthew Stafford out there because there's some talk that he might be available. So if my top choice of someone who could be available would be Matthew Stafford. Is it a remote chance? Yeah. You know what's a remote chance also? That Sam Darnold's going to be the Tennessee Titans freaking quarterback next year, Jared. What's the percent chance of that?
35, 40%?
Oh, 35, 40%. Okay.
Well, let's think about
this. There we go. Now we're living in the reality of Jared Stillman, the real world.
Let's think about this.
Gracious.
So the sentiment that I've gotten here at the Super Bowl is that Matthew Stafford is going to be a true free agent. I'm a little surprised by that too, but Burt Breer was on the show earlier this week. He says he thinks he's going to be a legitimate free agent, and I forget who else it was.
You mean Sam Darnold? I hope, because now otherwise you're contradicting yourself. You just said Stafford.
Oh yeah, I meant Darnold. That Darnold. Well, I mean Stafford can't be tagged either. He's released or he's under contract, but there's no. Like, he has a contract for next year. Darnold does not. But I figure Darnold will get tagged because somebody will want to trade for him and they'll get something in return. Minnesota will. But Albert Breer made it seem that way. And I want to say maybe it was Jim Miller was on the show earlier today. And he said, that he doesn't think Minnesota's going to tag Darnold. He thinks Darnold's going to get out there. So if Darnold gets out there, by my count, there are probably 3 legitimate suitors for him: the Titans, the Raiders, and the Steelers. The Browns aren't a legitimate suitor for him because the Browns are already paying a quarterback $46 million. So I don't see them paying another quarterback. Then when it comes to the Giants, I can't think the Giants would be interested in Sam Darnold because Sam Darnold's already been in New York and he's definitely not going back to the Jets. So that leaves you, the Raiders, and the Steelers. Well, the Steelers have said we want to sign Russell or Justin, which makes me think they want to sign Russell. So now it's really you or the Raiders. So that's where the 40% comes from.
You got me at 80 now. The Sam Darnold era, soon to begin.
I mean, again, are there other teams out there that would, like Arizona's not going after Sam Darnold. They already have a quarterback. Chicago's not going after Sam Darnold. So how many teams are out there that are realistic fits for Sam Darnold? You should
go through all the teams. Why don't you go through all the teams?
Well, I just did. I told you it's the Titans, the Raiders, and maybe the Steelers. Unless you think he's going to go to the Jets again after they already had him and got rid of him.
Well, I think that the highest percentage possibility is Sam Darnold with the Minnesota Vikings.
Even though they used a top 10 pick on a quarterback last year.
Yes, Jared. They won 14 games with them, and they do right. And who's coming off an ACL, and they do not have to immediately go to JJ McCarthy. In fact, I think it would be pretty stupid for them to do that. So I'm going to give it about 65% that he's with the Vikings. So if you think the other 35% is all Titans, then I'll buy your percentage.
Okay, so again, I think we can all agree Albert Breer pretty plugged in, right?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, Ian, did it not make Burt make it sound like he's pretty certain that Minnesota's all in on JJ?
I don't know about certain, but he says something like they feel comfortable with JJ McCarthy.
And they think he's ahead of his rehab and they think he's fine with his knee. And that's why they think they're going to let Darnold's going to get to free agency. If Darnold gets to free agency, he's not going back to Minnesota.
So, Jared, when you were doing the math then, your math included 0% to Minnesota. I just want to make sure I have your math right.
If he gets to free agency, he's not going back to the Vikings.
No, answer my question. 0?
It's pretty close at this point.
Okay.
Because, again, if he gets to free agency, he's going to get a 3 or 4, like a legitimate 3 or 4 year offer from either the Titans, the Raiders, the Steelers. Unless there's nobody out there that has any interest whatsoever in Sam Darnold, which I would be shocked by, that nobody would have interest in a quarterback that won 12 games. So now Minnesota could tag him, but again, everybody here seems pretty certain Minnesota's not going to tag him. So if he gets to the market, he's not coming back to Minnesota.
I don't even remember what the question was, but sounds good.
But do you think that if he gets to the market, he'll go back to Minnesota?
Oh, I don't completely rule it out. I mean, I hear what you're saying. You would think that he would get a better, a more term with somebody else than they would want to give him. But I also would not rule out that he might still go back with them, even if he gets free agency.
I think it has to be the tag.
You
And
got a
again,
chance to
Bert
win.
says
If
they're
you're
not going to use it.
Listen, if you're Sam Darnold, if you have any self-awareness, you also understand that Kevin O'Connell was amazing for you. You also understand who you were throwing to. And you understand that 2 years of that could then still get you another bite at the apple, as opposed to going to some bleep show like here and all of a sudden being exposed, or even if you're not quote unquote exposed, all of a sudden seeing your performance drop dramatically and people say that you're exposed. You got to think about where you are too and what it does for you.
If you were to be offered $80 million guaranteed, and now Sam Darnold has gotten some good contracts, but he hasn't gotten like a legitimate quarterback contract in his career. So you would turn down $80 million guaranteed to go to a place in Minnesota where they already have your replacement on the team, and they're probably at most going to want to give you $30 million.
I mean, again, you're saying, oh, so you would do this, and you're just making up numbers. I'm saying that's a consideration for him.
Again, I feel pretty certain that Sam Darnold will get on the open market at least a $100 million contract that will include somewhere around $70 to $80 million in guarantees. Like, nobody's going to sit there and give Darnold a $10 million contract again after he won 14 games.
Yep, we agree on that.
More Jared versus Joe next. Stillman and Company, 105 The Game.
Big discussions.
What's the deal with this quad?
Bigger arguments.
I was right. I had my finger on the pulse of this team.
It's so dumb.
It's time
Oh, it was the cap. Cap.
for Jared versus Joe.
For you, this is actually kind of well-reasoned.
Brought to you by First Horizon Bank, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle, and by Pella Windows and Doors.
We make the rules around here now.
Now on Stillman and Company.
Let's get it on.
There you go. Jared versus Joe live from Radio Row at Super Bowl 59. Caroline, go.
All right, Jared, you go first. Is Jalen Hurts a great quarterback? Not necessarily elite, not just good. Is he great?
No. So I have been arguing for like 4 days now I'm arguing with my own text line in the YouTube chat about this. But I made some comment on Sirius on Saturday where I was like, yeah, if Jalen Hurts, he's good enough to get past the NFC quarterbacks with the best running back in the league, the best offensive line in the league, 2 great receivers, a great tight end, the number 1 defense in the league, Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator, Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. He's good enough to do that, but, that's a different animal beating these AFC quarterbacks. Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Jackson. And so I just don't know if the game on Sunday comes right down to, okay, Jalen Hurts, you have to go do something extravagant to beat Mahomes. I just don't think Jalen Hurts can do it. And the amount of people, the amount of phone calls I took from the state of Pennsylvania and Alabama on Saturday of people being like, I'll take Jalen Hurts over Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen because he wins, is just unbelievable. He is a solid game manager at quarterback. And he's a great quarterback for that team with the way he uses his legs. If they take Saquon Barkley out of the game and they take his running away from, and he has to win it, I don't think he can do it. I think he's short of the elite quarterbacks in this league, and I think he always will be. And I don't think he's as good as the other quarterbacks he's beaten in the NFC. Stafford, I would rather have than Jalen Hurts. Daniels, I would rather have than Jalen Hurts. Jordan Love, it's close. I think I'd rather have over Jalen Hurts. But again, he's got the best running back, the best offensive line, the best defense, 2 great receivers, a great tight end, and a good offensive coordinator and a great defensive coordinator. And the Eagles are the team that proves the cap is fake. They spend at every single one of those positions, and that's why they're here, not because of their quarterback. Kansas City, they're like the new Patriots. The second the quarterback goes, they'll go back to being a regular team. But Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. He is absolutely not a great quarterback.
Who was his running back in the Super Bowl when he threw for 300 plus against Mahomes, and the reason they lost was because of a very questionable defensive holding call?
I believe it was the guy who ended up signing in Chicago.
DeAndre Swift?
No, who was the one before that?
Yeah, but that's the point.
Signed for a bunch of money?
I think he's a very good quarterback. But, again, you're sitting here like you're saying you're laying out all that's there for him. And we've seen him in a Super Bowl throw for 300-plus yards. You could argue outplay Mahomes. And, again, be in position to win that game without doing something crazy. If there was anything crazy, it was the call that people complained about, and I hated it too. So that kind of debunks a lot of what you said.
Miles Sanders ran for 1,200 yards and made the Pro Bowl in 2022.
He's good player. He's a good player. He's not Saquon Barkley, right?
No.
You're trying to. Okay.
But see, I actually think that Philadelphia has a better chance to win this Super Bowl than they did 2 years ago because Saquon Barkley is that much better than Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell.
100%.
Regardless, it's crazy to say, for anybody to say I'd rather have him than Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. They both win too. And he's a very good quarterback. I don't know that game manager is what I would call him. He's a playmaker. He makes huge plays. He has come up huge in a lot of games. He's also had plenty of games where he throws for 173 and runs for 40, and they're just fine because of everything else they have going for him. So I don't know that he's definitely not elite like the top Cross. He'll never be that. You know, the word great, it just depends on how loose you want that, loosely you want to define that word. I would call him very good.
I just think the reality in the NFL right now is it's a lot easier to get to the Super Bowl out of the NFC than it is the AFC. And I don't think it's necessarily fair because, like, Brock Purdy got to the Super Bowl last year out of the NFC. And that, again, that was also a stacked team in San Francisco. I think we can all agree on that. And yet everyone just is like, you know, yeah, well, the Eagles got to the Super Bowl, so he must be good. And I'm like, but it's so much. The NFC outside of Stafford and Daniels, and I think Stafford is like a little bit past his prime, and Daniels is a little bit before his prime. But outside of those two, I mean, I think the entire NFC is filled with average quarterbacks. I think Goff, very average. If you put Goff, an average starting quarterback, just like Tannehill was. If you put Goff on a good team, he'll have good stats and good numbers. And if you put him on a bad team, he'll be bad. I think Jalen Hurts is the same way. I think it's easier for Jalen Hurts to be replaced than it is for Jalen Hurts to go to a team where he can have the kind of success he's had with the Eagles. Like, if you put Jalen Hurts on the Steelers, I don't think the Steelers get any further than they got this year. And for some reason, it's like, well, they're in the Super Bowl, so Jalen Hurts must be just great. And I am not there.
Yeah, I basically agree. I mean, you know, I think he's better. He's better than the current state of Russell Wilson, and he's better than Justin Fields. So maybe he would carry them a little further. But we haven't seen Jalen Hurts really in anything but an ideal situation. And look, he's absolutely surpassed what I thought he'd be in the NFL by a pretty long shot, actually.
Yeah, but that and great are two totally different things. And the other thing that I think is amazing is this. I do know that it's Kansas City's defense versus Jalen more so than like Jalen versus Mahomes on Sunday. But what I find fascinating is that I think that these great coaches and quarterbacks like Brady and Belichick and Andy and Mahomes, they have a way of like making the other team's quarterback be the one who beats them. And in the rare cases, Eli Manning found a way to do it. Like in the rare opportunities, Eli found a way at the end, ball in his hands to win those Super Bowls. Nick Foles, same way. I don't know if Jalen can do that. And I feel like Andy and Mahomes are kind of like, you know what? We're going to put the ball in the end of the game on Sunday in Jalen's hands and make him beat us. And I don't know if he can do it.
Almost did it 2 years ago. And I know it's almost, and I know this is not St. Louis. You don't want to.
Do you know who I saw walking around here today, Caroline?
Eric Dickerson.
Eric Dickerson. And he was talking with our buddy Al Smith, and I almost went up to him and just want to say, Mr. Dickerson, we want to win. We don't want to almost win.
But when you think about the Super Bowl 2 years ago, it was that weird fluky scoop and score, and then that ticky-tack holding call and the Chiefs' final possession of that game. I
don't even remember the scoop and score. Who scooped and scored?
Yeah, the Eagles were destroying them until that happened.
It was Jalen Hurts' game of his career.
I remember AJ was like going bananas in the first half.
Yeah, they were going to blow them out. That fumble return completely changed the game.
I mean, isn't it though, like, if Jalen Hurts was a great quarterback, he would have finished him, found a way to finish him kind of thing?
But nobody would ever accuse, or at least I don't think anyone would ever accuse Jalen Hurts of being in the tier of like Patrick Mahomes, the kind of guy who is an elite quarterback and can overcome things like that and can say, F it, I'll do it myself.
But would you put him in the category of Jared Goff, or would you put him in a better category?
Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
I'd probably put him in the category of Jared Goff. That's
so
fair.
That's where I think he belongs, which again, that's the Tannehill class. Tannehill was not a bad quarterback.
Not the Tannehill class.
Jared Goff is Tannehill. Like, if he's got a good team around him and a good coach coaching him, Jared Goff can get you to the Super Bowl. Now, can he get you past, Brady in the Super Bowl? Probably not. And the only way he gets to the Super Bowl is if the referees give it to him, which they did. But, can he get past the NFC? Sure. But the AFC, like, you got to be special in this AFC to get past. But Goff and Tannehill, I don't see much of a difference between 2020 Tannehill and 2020 whatever this year is for Goff.
No. Cousins, same tier.
They're all the same. They're all the same. The question, like, I think there's a little mini tier, in between the great quarterbacks and the Cousins class, the Dak class, Trevor Lawrence, Cousins, those guys, Sam Darnold, Jalen Hurts. And I think that's kind of like Stafford feels to me to be a little bit more than that group. And Jaden Daniels feels to be a little bit more than that group. Same with CJ Stroud, but I'm not sure I can put CJ Stroud in Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Burrow category. But I don't think that Jalen Hurts belongs anywhere near CJ Stroud's class.
And I was going to say, yeah, but I can.
Oh, there's miles between them, but yeah, I guess I'd put Stroud ahead of him.
I was going to say, well, I trust Jared Goff more to not throw 3 interceptions in the divisional round of the playoffs, but that is quite literally what he did.
What you just did.
It is quite literally what he did.
Fumble.
Yeah.
He added a lost fumble that Tannehill didn't have.
Okay, on to the next one.
Yes.
I know Jared's going to hate this one. Joe, you go first. If Patrick Mahomes wins his 3rd consecutive Super Bowl, should he be considered the greatest of all time over Tom Brady?
I think then you can finally start to have those debates. Like, I don't agree. Karski and I got in this last week. Karski's like, well, once he gets to 7, then you can talk about it. And I'm like, well, I don't think, if we're just counting rings, if we're just doing it by rings, then let's rank all the quarterbacks, and there'll be some hilarious rankings of quarterbacks in NFL history, including some of the greatest who have never won one. So I don't think he has to get to 7 to be considered that, but I think there's still got to be longevity and more compiling of numbers and more excellence and more greatness over more years. He will have the 3 in a row that Brady never had if he gets it, so that will be a feather in his cap in the argument. But I would not declare at that moment, okay, we have a new GOAT. I just, like, again, the Brady thing to me, the most impressive thing that he did, because, look, they did have great teams. Even if he didn't have, other than when he had Randy Moss, he didn't have, Hall of Fame receivers. They had great teams. The thing that impressed me the most was that he won it in Tampa after basically the whole league had given up on him. And I think that added, cherry on top. I mean, I don't know what the Mahomes counter that. Who knows? Who knows how his career will unfold? I'm just saying that's way into his career. That's after everybody gave up on him, including Belichick, and that was different. So I think Mahomes now you can start having these conversations if Mahomes wins it Sunday, but I would not call him the GOAT yet.
So I wouldn't put him ahead of Brady because Brady did go somewhere else and win. And it wasn't like he went somewhere else and then he joined some super team, and he went to a 7-9 team with Bruce Arians as the coach, and he won. And I think the old story is Giselle went up to him on the field after the game and said, what else do you have to prove now? And I think there's something to that. And let's not kid ourselves. Mahomes has 3 playoff losses, 2 to Brady. 1 to Burrow, but 2 to Brady. So I can't go that far yet, but I will say this. If Kansas City wins on Sunday, then I think I would argue that the Kansas City dynasty is better than the Patriot dynasty, because the Patriots won like 6 over 20. And with Kansas City, you're at 4-6, and a 3-peat. It'd be very hard for me to believe that the Chiefs haven't been more dominant over this period than the Patriots were, where the Patriots did win, they're 3 in 4 years. This would be 4-6, and it took the Patriots like 12 years or whatever to win the 4th one. So I think the bigger question is better dynasty, but I would still say Brady at this point is ahead of Mahomes. But let me say this. I mean, if they win this one, then I do think that Mahomes can get to 7. And if Mahomes gets to 7, then it'd be hard to argue Brady over Mahomes. And if Mahomes gets to 8, then it'd be almost impossible. And I love Brady.
I do agree with you from the dynasty perspective, but I also think there's something to be said that 6 Super Bowls over 20 years, like the longevity of just how dominant the Patriots were for that long. Like I think it's the same kind of fair argument with Brady. He was great for as long as he was. The Patriots were great for as long as they were.
What's crazy though is like there was a foil to that in Peyton Manning. You know, they won the AFC title game in the RCA Dome, and Peyton Manning won a title there. And then they won the AFC title game in Denver twice, and then Peyton won another Super Bowl there. And so even though Brady was ahead of Peyton,
just the Manning family as a whole.
True. But it's crazy because Josh Allen is kind of the Brady Manning here. Josh Allen's the other guy, and he never beats Mahomes in the playoffs. Caroline, who wins?
40% is crazy, Jared. Joe wins.
I can't wait till Sam Darnold is the Titan. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Jared versus Joe. Thank you all so much. Caroline, we will see you tomorrow here in New Orleans. And Joe,
see you tomorrow.
We will see you, as they used to say in the funny papers. Stillman and company, former Titans kicker, Braden Narvison. I'm actually going to ask him how bad of a coach Colt Anderson was. He'll sit down with us next. Stillman and company, 105 game. We are back at Radio Row, where our coverage is presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Family Leisure, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and Houston Clinic Orthopedics. When experience matters, joined by former Titans kicker Braden Narveson, who spent all of the offseason with the Titans, made, what was it, a 55-yard, 57-yard field goal in the Seattle game?
59, yeah.
59-yard field goal in the Seattle game. And then ended up in Green Bay, then ended up back with the Titans. And so now are you signed to a futures contract somewhere, or are you still technically a free agent?
I am technically still a free agent, yep.
Okay, so I want to start with this. What was your experience like with the Titans in the offseason? Before you get into the season part of it, the offseason, because I felt like it was a little too sunshine and rainbowy as far as kind of the comments that were coming out about how good the team was going to be and how good and how happy everybody in the building was and all of the positive sunshine and whatnot. You experienced it. What was it like?
I mean, I feel like it was kind of the same for us. We always obviously thought that, the season was going to go how it was going to go. At the end of the day, every team is going through the same thing, right? In the preseason, everybody thinks that they're going to win the Super Bowl. Everything feels good in the preseason. And I think, I think that the team is a good team. They've got the qualities and the talents to do good things. And everybody in the building was so great. Truly blessed to have been in that building and been around all the coaches like Coach Callahan, and Coach Anderson and all of them. But at the end of the day,
we'll get to him in a second.
At the end of the day, it's there's 31 other teams that are thinking the same way, trying to do the same thing, and when you get to the NFL, the margins are just so small, man. And so
let me ask you this question, though. How different was it in Green Bay? And the word I guess I'm looking for is accountability here, because I felt like the 2024 Titans lacked accountability. Green Bay seems like a very put-together organization. It seems like they're run correctly. It seems like they do the right things. Was it a difference between kind of the accountability with the Titans as compared to Green Bay? Was it the same? What was your experience?
I think everything, no matter what organization you go to, there's always going to be differences, right? And, the staff at Green Bay had been there longer. They had established a little bit more of a culture. They had been there, had players that they've brought in. And obviously it was Coach Callahan and that whole staff. It was a new staff, new year. And so from a perspective of that, they're implementing their culture. They're establishing their culture. And sometimes it just takes time. I think both teams had very, very good culture. Both teams had good accountability. I think it's just something that, comes with new coaches.
So what was the difference between the two, other than there being new coaches in Tennessee and not new coaches in Green Bay?
What was the difference between the two? Honestly, it's hard to pinpoint exact things that were different. Obviously, we won more games in Green Bay than in Tennessee. But as far as, Green Bay, there's nothing to do really as far as going out to, concerts or certain things like that. There's really nothing outside of football. So I think if maybe the one difference I would see is everybody in Green Bay always wanted to be at the building and be in the building because, it's football. That's all it is out there. There's not really a whole lot else that you can do out there, and in Tennessee, not saying that they're not always in the building or not, but
sounds like that's what you're saying.
No, I'm just saying that could be viewed as a difference in the two, but everybody in Tennessee was always in the building too. So that's where I'm saying, could you look at it like that? Yes. But at the end of the day, all these players are NFL players. They're all talented players. And it comes down to super small details. And I personally can't comment on, what those details may or may not be that wins or loses for one organization or does for the other.
I don't think it was a small detail when it came down to you guys coming into Nissan Stadium and beating the Titans when you were with the Packers. I don't think it was like a small detail here or there that cost the Titans the game.
I don't know. I mean, it is, a couple plays here or there that go.
It's when they gave by 40 points.
Yeah. I mean, it's just part of it. It's part of NFL football.
Braden Narveson's with us, former Titans kicker. So when it comes to Colt Anderson, you brought him up. Rich Bisaccia is a very well-respected special teams coach. The Titans have brought in Bones Fossil, who's a very well-respected. What didn't work for Colt Anderson? And was it as bad as far as his structure, organization, whatever, as it seemed to the outside, where they were getting a kick blocked every week, or they were giving up a massive return, or they were? What was your experience with Colt Anderson?
Well, obviously, I wasn't there for any of that, so I can't really comment on that. But I think Colt's a fantastic coach. I have nothing but respect for Colt. It was, again, his first year being the head special teams coach. So, he's going to learn some things from this, just like I learned some things from this. I was cut 3 times essentially, and so I'm going to learn from that. But I think Colt is a great guy, a great coach, and he's going to be very successful wherever he ends up.
So why did he struggle here?
I mean, I can't comment on that. I wasn't even there. So
let's get to you. Here's the fascinating thing. Braden Narvison's with us on the program. I would watch you make kicks in training camp from 56, from 52. Then I'd see you miss from 37. When that happens, is that a mechanics thing? Is that a, not making the right adjustment thing? I mean, again, it's really hard for people to understand what a kicker's life is like. You've kicked with the Packers, you kicked with the Titans. We've seen you make game-winning kicks before. What kind of, if you had to say the hang-up on this season for you was, what would you say?
I think some of it was technique. I'm pretty confident in myself mentally. And I think just it came down to some things that I needed to tweak technique-wise to be able to be more consistent. I need to focus a little bit more on my process, a little bit more on repeatability. And, because at the end of the day, if you focus on the process and you focus on and less on the result's going to take care of itself.
What'd you think about working with Nick Folk?
I love Nick. Nick's a great guy. Really, really fun to learn from Nick. He's obviously a well-established veteran in the NFL. And, he was a very big blessing to me to be able to work with in Tennessee.
So when he got traded to the Titans, a buddy of mine in New England was like, yeah, he just can't kick it far. Like, so he can kick it short. He just can't kick it far. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. I was like, so I guess, don't expect 55 or something like that out of Nick Folk. Now, he's been a great kicker for the Titans, but I asked him about it. I said, hey, what happened with these extra points and hitting the goalpost and everything that happened in New England? And he talked about the weather up there and things like that, but he didn't seem to be super offended when I asked him about missing all those kicks. And with a kicker, I mean, I don't know. Like, if I go ask, like, hey, man, you missed that kick in the Houston game, Braden, I'm sure that's not something that you enjoy discussing. Did his approach, was that something that you noticed? And maybe, is there something about being a veteran kicker for as long as he's done it that you took away from saying, like, yeah, it's one thing to think it, it's another thing to see somebody live it?
Yeah, I mean, just like I said before, analyzing instead of being emotional in the results. If something goes bad, I mean, Kobe said it, you got to, if you miss a shot, you can't analyze it emotionally, or you're just going to keep thinking about it. You got to look at it. All right, why did I miss it? Was it technique? What did I not do as a part of my normal process? What looks different? And Nick does that all the time. Nick is just he has such a repeatable process. If you watch Nick, every kick, the way he sets up, the way he takes his steps, the way he hits the ball, everything is repeatable, and everything that he does is the same over and over and over again. And that's just a testament to his 15, 17 year NFL career.
Who was your best friend on the Titans when you were there?
T'Vondre Sweat.
Really?
Yeah.
So give me some scoop on that. I was a little worried when they drafted him, that he'd be too lazy or too fat or too unreliable, but he seemed to pass all the tests this year.
Yeah, he's a hard worker. He's a great person, and he's still one of my best friends. So really good dude.
Okay, Braden Narvison with us live from Radio Row. Tell us about why you're here with the juvenile diabetes.
Yep. So I've got type 1 diabetes. I'm here on behalf of Omnipod.
Do you have one of those things?
I do.
Like on your, I see it
right
there.
Here. Yep. And, it's been a blessing for me going from insulin shots to now having a tubeless waterproof pump that, I can wear during the game, not have to think about. So if you have type 1 diabetes and you're listening and you're looking into an insulin pump, go to omnipod.com, and all the safety information is on there for you to check it out. Make sure it works for you.
Braden, thanks for stopping by as always here. And good luck to you, by the way, because again, I know how difficult it can be to be a kicker. So
absolutely.
Good luck on that one. Braden Narvison, Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company live out of Radio Row. Of course, our coverage presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Family Leisure, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, Houston Clinic Orthopedics, 312 Pizza Company, NewCumberland.com, and by Shane Company. Great stuff today on the program. Tomorrow, we will have Warren Moon on the program. We will have Michelle Beadle on the program. We'll have the TV Power Hour. Rich Gannon will be on the program. So we are loaded live from Radio Row. We'll see you all tomorrow, too.
Rami and Retro, tomorrow morning at 6 on 102.5.